Chapter 258. Chu Yang smiled and repeatedly said that he didn't dare. He looked over and saw that Diwu Qingro was a man in his 40s. He had long eyebrows and phoenix eyes. He had 3 long strands of beard that floated in front of his chest. His hair was as black as ink. His body seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious veil that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. It made people unable to see through him. But when they saw him, they could feel that he was extraordinary. Diwu Qingro's current appearance was more like that of a hermit in the mountains. If one were to look at him like this, no one would be able to imagine that this tranquil and carefree person was the prime minister of a nation. He was an ambitious and ruthless person who controlled millions of troops and controlled the world's situation. He could make clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Even the enemy could only move between his palms. This was Diwu Qingro. But now, his body was full of peace. His eyes were full of grace and compassion. He seemed to be a compassionate man with lofty ideals. He was facing the suffering of the world. He was sighing with heartache. Prime Minister is too polite. Please. Chu Yang stepped aside and extended his hand to welcome the guest. Elder Chu, please. Diwu Qingro asked with a refined smile. Chu Yang and Diwu Qingro walked side by side as he stepped on the stairs. This is... Diwu Qingro looked at Gu Duxing with a smile. Gu Duxing's cold eyes also looked over. A sword flashed in his eyes. Sword energy filled the air. Looking at Diwu Qingro was like looking at a corpse. This was a kind of look in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to slaughter the world with his sword. He had no scruples. Everyone in the world was a dead man in front of his sword. Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian's aura surged violently. Their 4 eyes looked at Gu Duxing fiercely. The other side's indifferent attitude was unbearable for these 2 king-level masters. This was contempt. Whether it was Diwu Qingro's power or the dignity of a king-level master, they couldn't allow such contempt in front of them. The 3 auras suddenly collided. Gu Duxing's face turned pale. His body suddenly leaned back. His eyes became even colder. His sword energy surged out like a violent wave. This is my elder brother, Chu Nan. Chu Yang was somewhat embarrassed. He coughed and said, Grandpa Seed, please don't take offense. My eldest brother doesn't like to talk. He cultivates. He looked at Gu Duxing with an inquiring gaze. Gu Duxing nodded and didn't say a word. He cultivates. Emotionless sword Dao. Chu Yang's voice was somewhat low. Oh, Diwu Qingro, Jing Menghun, and Yin Wu Tian suddenly understood. No wonder this guy is as cold as a coffin. He cultivates the emotionless sword way. He couldn't be blamed for this. Thinking this way, he withdrew his aura at the same time. But Gu Duxing didn't withdraw his aura. The sword energy crisscrossed in the closed passageway. On the walls on both sides, there were dozens of crisscrossing sword marks. Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian looked at each other in amazement. How old was the other party? He actually had such an achievement. He was a revered level swordsman, and he used his body as a sword to release sword energy. Such a person was definitely a genius in the sword Dao. However, if such a young man were to cultivate the emotionless sword Dao, although it would be extremely powerful, it would be equivalent to him losing his youth. To a person's life, this was truly a regrettable thing to do. This kind of pity would become an inner demon the more profound it was. Thinking this, Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian looked at each other at the same time. They both saw the gloating look in each other's eyes. Brother Ling cultivates the emotionless sword Dao. We can see this. Jing Menghun was a first-grade king-level expert. But when he looked at Gu Duxing, a second-grade revered sword master, he unexpectedly felt that the other party's fighting spirit and sword intent were constantly rising crazily. No matter how powerful his aura was, the other party's sword intent was like an ice-cold needle that was constantly moving forward. It would break through the surface and advance courageously. Jing Menghun had a feeling that this young swordsman's fighting style was absolutely crazy. I would rather my whole body turn into minced meat. But as long as my sword is still there, I can still poke a hole in your body. Facing this young revered sword master, Jing Menghun felt as if his back was drenched in sweat. If he could cultivate to the 3rd grade of Sword King with such ruthless sharpness, perhaps a king-level expert like himself would have to run as far away as possible. This had nothing to do with the depth of his primary power. It was a characteristic of the emotionless Sword Dao. As long as he used his sword, there would be no return. Jing Menghun could easily kill a 3rd-grade Sword King with his cultivation. But under the opponent's sharp counterattack, he would suffer a sword wound that would never heal. His soul would be damaged. Once it was formed, he would never be able to advance again. Jing Menghun would never do such a thing. Therefore, he asked Chu Yang out of curiosity, "But I don't know if Grand Duke Chu also cultivates the sword?" His voice faintly carried an inquisitive tone, and it was somewhat overbearing. He had been in a superior position for a long time. He had always talked to his subordinates. He had developed a habit of speaking condescendingly. In fact, he was not being disrespectful. But Diwu Qingro couldn't help but frown when he heard this. "You are?" Chu Yang revealed a questioning look as he looked at Jing Menghun. "My surname is Jing. I am the Prime Minister's attendant and bodyguard." Jing Menghun calmly said, "Oh." Chu Yang exhaled. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he said, "Brother Jing is right. I also cultivate the sword. But it's not the ruthless way of the sword. It's—" He hesitated for a moment. It seemed as if he was hesitating whether he should say it or not. Diwu Qingrou's eyes flashed with a trace of light. "Isn't this Grand Duke Chu's temper a bit too good?" But then he heard Chu Yang say, "It's the secular way of the sword." He smiled gently. But he slowly raised his head after he had finished answering the other party's question. Then he slowly said with a warm smile, "Brother Jing, this is the first time we've met. So, I'll answer your question on behalf of Diwu Qingro." Diwu Qingro had just doubted his good temper. But his bad temper had immediately flared up. Chu Yang looked at Jing Menghun's cold eyes. However, he still had a smile on his face as he calmly said, "However, I don't like people interrupting me when I'm talking to someone. If there's a next time. I don't care if you're a king-level expert or an emperor-level expert. I don't care if you're a king-level expert of the Golden Horse Riders Department or a king-level expert of the Silver Donkey Riders Department. Do you understand?" His eyes suddenly flashed like a sharp sword as he looked at Jing Menghun. He was a young man, but his body was brimming with a kind of lofty and superior demeanor. It seemed as if he was on the same level as the heavens. His body was at the top of the world. His eyes were filled with disdain. His aura was unhindered. His eyes were cold and sharp. He looked at a king-level master as if he was looking at an ant. He had always referred to himself as I. But he was now full of this Grand Duke. That kind of playboy aura of the top clan of the upper 3 heavens was suddenly revealed. "I'm crazy. My cultivation isn't as good as yours. But I dare to scold you in front of you. I point at your nose and scold you. You have a temper? You've got guts. You dare to speak to me in a condescending tone? I'll crush you to death with a condescending tone." Jing Menghun's face instantly turned purple. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He took a deep breath and forced himself to lower his head. However, he couldn't help but clench his fists. But he didn't dare to move. The other party was Brother Chu Hu of the upper 3 heavens. With the strength of the upper 3 heavens clan, killing a king-level master like him would be as easy as blowing off dust. Moreover, he knew that Diwu Qingro had come here for an important matter. So, how could he dare to ruin Diwu Qingro's plan if Diwu Qingro didn't open his mouth? Forget it. Diwu Qingro's face was still as gentle as before. He didn't show any dissatisfaction. "Menghun, don't talk." Chu Yang had just vented his anger. So, he turned his head and faced Diwu Qingro with a warm and gentle smile. "I was too anxious. I couldn't help but discipline your servant on your behalf. I hope Prime Minister won't blame me. This is my bad temper since childhood. I can't stand people who don't know etiquette. They don't know who's superior and who doesn't know when to advance or retreat. I've made a fool of myself in front of Prime Minister." Diwu Qingro calmly said, "It's okay. But Duke Chu was a bit rash. But you're right to discipline him. King-level Master Jing isn't my servant. He's my friend for many years. We've always been like brothers. Like brothers. Jing Menghun heard these words. He suddenly felt warm in his heart. He felt warm. The grievances he had suffered a moment ago had disappeared because of these words. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. He kindly smiled and said, "Don't tell me. I just scolded Prime Minister's friend." These two people hadn't even sat down yet. But they were already at each other's throats. One was cautiously probing, and the other was going all out to deal with the probing. Chu Lu is an honored guest of the upper three heavens. If I haggle over this matter, it would be rather. Diwu Qingro smiled and said, "It would be rather ungentlemanly. Nothing can be accomplished without rules." Chu Yang also kindly smiled and said, "Prime Minister, if you want to deal with people like us, you'd better train your subordinates to be more obedient." Then he laughed heartily and said, "But, Prime Minister has come here today. So you're my guest. Please, please. I knew early in the morning that Prime Minister was coming. So, I specially prepared good tea for Prime Minister. Please don't be polite." Then he straightforwardly let Diwu Qingro in. King of Hell Chu had won the first round of the clash between two heroes. Diwu Qingro was at a disadvantage. But he felt somewhat wronged. That was because the other party was completely unreasonable. Diwu Qingro's performance was perfect. The other party was methodical in the beginning. However, he was temperamental. If he said he was unreasonable, he would be unreasonable. If he said he would turn hostile, he would turn hostile. Even Diwu Qingro felt somewhat aggrieved by this sudden outburst of astonishment. Chapter 259. The reason for this was Jing Menghun's interjection. With Jing Menghun's status in Diwu Qingro's group, he had the right to interject. Not only did he have the right to interject, but he also had the right to make decisions. How could the number 1 king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Department be ordinary? But now, Chu Yang's interjection had allowed Chu Yang to rudely grab hold of him. He had used an extremely unreasonable, arrogant and despotic attitude. He had ruthlessly given Diwu Qingro a show of strength. Diwu Qingro had come to probe. Therefore, Chu Yang would be seen through by Diwu Qingro if he showed any weakness. Therefore, Chu Yang could not show any weakness. On the contrary, he was the Duke of Upper Three Heavens. How honorable was that? How transcendent was that? Diwu Qingro, you are the Prime Minister of a secular country. I have given you a lot of face by meeting you. I don't care if you are an ambitious person or a coward. In my eyes, you are less than a dog's fart. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I catch a loophole in your subordinates, I will be able to influence your purpose. Although I am rude, I am rude. What can you do about it? Chu Yang's unreasonable behavior this time seemed to be rude and unreasonable. However, his demeanor, bearing, and temperament perfectly displayed the tyrannical power of a super clan of the upper three heavens. Jing Menghun was furious. Diwu Qingro was depressed. But Minister Chu's heart was beating like a drum. After all, he was facing Diwu Qingro. Who would have thought that Diwu Qingro would not be able to see through this? After entering the room, both sides sat down as the host and the guest. However, the harmony that had been there a moment ago had disappeared because of King of Hell Chu's unreasonable provocation. "Please, this is the purple crystal tea that I picked from the Purple Cloud Mountain. It's the only one of its kind even in the upper three heavens." Chu Yang politely brought out the teacups. However, there were only 2 seats at the tea table. One was the host and the other was the guest. Obviously, this Duke Chu did not prepare a seat for a servant, let alone enjoy his good tea. Although Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian were sullen, they could only stand behind Diwu Qingro. "Good tea." Diwu Qingro took a sip, closed his eyes, and savored the aftertaste. After a long time, he opened his eyes and sighed, "I haven't drunk this tea for many years. This cup of tea seems to have brought me back to the frivolous past when I was a teenager." "Oh? Has Prime Minister drunk this tea before?" Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Diwu Qingro's origin had always been a mystery. Some said that he was an orphan, some said that he was a descendant of a noble, some said that he had mysteriously appeared, but none of the legends could be proven. Diwu Qingrou's origin was even more mysterious than King of Helchu's facade. However, Chu Yang suddenly became alert when he heard these words today. Could it be that Diwu Qingrou's roots are in the upper three heavens? Diwu Qingrou smiled meaningfully and said, "Ancestor of the Chu clan. Senior Chu, are you still in good health?" Chu Yang said solemnly, "God bless you, elder ancestor, your body is as healthy as before. You've made a breakthrough in your cultivation. Good people have good karma." Diwu Qingrou's face revealed a look of reminiscence as the fragrance of the tea lingered in the air. He said, "In those days the ancestor of the Chu clan, Senior Chu by Shao, used a long sword to gallop unhindered in the upper three heavens. Countless people died under his sword. His illustrious fame and awe-inspiring divine might have left the descendants fascinated and in awe. Prime Minister, I'm afraid you've remembered wrongly. Ancestor did not use a sword back then." Chu Yang frowned, but his face was not worried. "Prime Minister, you can't speak carelessly." Diwu Qingrou's eyes flashed and said, "Did I remember wrongly?" "Mph." Chu Yang snorted and said, "Prime Minister, today I have a good temper. If it were anyone else in the Chu clan, I'm afraid no one would be able to joke with you like this." What a joke! Since Chu Yang planned to pretend to be the Chu clan's patriarch, how could he not ask the blue-clothed man about the Chu clan's affairs? Let's not talk about anything else. Just look at how the blue-clothed man patiently answered Chu Yang's questions that night. It was obvious that Diwu Qingrou's probing would not work. Minister Chu asked about the direction of every latrine in the Chu clan. This made the blue-clothed man almost collapse. However, Diwu Qingrou's focus was not on this. "Sigh, so much time has passed. I've forgotten many things. But there's one thing that I'm still brooding about." Diwu Qingrou let out a melancholy sigh and said, "I remember that I met Big Brother Fei Ling a few times back then. Big Brother Fei Ling's lifelong regret made me wring my hands and sigh. I was depressed all day long. I don't know if it has been resolved. There are so many people. Where can you find it?" Chu Yang sighed sadly. "Uncle Fei Ling's heart is probably difficult." As he spoke, Chu Yang revealed a relaxed posture that said, "I want to hide it but I can't." It showed that even the Chu clan of the upper three heavens had internal conflicts, but his heart was also cold. This guy also knows that the Chu clan lost a child? Diwu Qingrou's expressions softened a little. "Duke Chu, you came to the lower three heavens for an important matter, right?" Diwu Qingrou asked. "Important matter? The so-called important matter, Prime Minister just said it. That's why we're here." Chu Yang said with some resentment, "Actually, we came out with fourth uncle to play." "Oh, fourth Master Chu is in the province now?" Diwu Qingrou was startled. "Mph." Chu Yang snorted and did not comment. Diwu Qingrou laughed and said, "I see. But when we came here we found something interesting." Chu Yang said excitedly, "Prime Minister, since you are not an outsider, I will tell you the truth." "What is it?" "I am very interested in that saber and sword." Chu Yang's eyes revealed a hawk-like sharpness. "I am determined to get them. Regarding this matter, as a local snake, I ask for your help." After a pause, Chu Yang seemed to have made up his mind. "As long as Prime Minister helps me get that saber and sword, then I, Chu Fei, can promise Prime Minister one thing." "Yes, you understand." Diwu Qingrou felt a headache coming on. "Until now, we have not completely confirmed your identity, and you actually made a request first? And you want the saber and sword that are the focus of attention now? Duke Chu, I am much older than you, but I have a different understanding of this matter." Diwu Qingrou said earnestly, "As far as I know, this matter is King of Helchu's conspiracy. I don't care if he has pubic hair or wool. Anyway, I want that saber and sword." Chu Yang snorted and said, "Prime Minister, even if I am a pervert, I can still tell the authenticity of a saber and a sword. I don't have any other meaning, but I am afraid that Duke Chu will be punished when you return to the clan." Diwu Qingrou said warmly, his voice relaxed. Chu Yang immediately realized that he was being a little too hasty. He sat back down and said with a fake smile, "If Prime Minister doesn't want to help, then it's fine. We brothers will just try our luck and have some fun." Diwu Qingro was silent for a moment and said, "I will urge people to investigate again." "Oh, if it is too troublesome, then there is no need." Chu Yang leaned back and said, "If you want to get it, then there is more than one way." Diwu Qingro felt like a tiger eating the sky with nowhere to go. This Duke Chu in front of him was unexpectedly watertight and impeccable. Could it be that it is really Duke Chu? But why would Duke Chu appear here? The conversation just now seemed ordinary, but Diwu Qingro used the inside story of the Chu clan, the martial arts of the Chu clan, the regrets of the Chu clan, the 3 levels of seniority, and the rules of the heavenly layer to test him. However, the other party was able to answer his questions fluently. Moreover, every question was followed by a sharp counterattack. Sometimes, this Duke Chu answered casually, and Diwu Qingro was a bit overwhelmed. However, Qingro came here today to ask Duke Chu about something. Diwu Qingro said, "Duke Chu is standing high, so naturally you can see far. Please enlighten me." Diwu Qingro's attitude suddenly became very humble. "What is it?" At present, Iron Cloud, Great Zhao, and Wuji are 3 countries. There are many small countries around them. In Duke Chu's opinion, what should be done in such a chaotic situation? In this land of countries, who is the hero? Who is the overlord? Diwu Qingro sighed and said, "For this matter, it can be said that I have exhausted my mind." This? Chu Yang revealed a look of being asked a question, and looked at Diwu Qingro with some astonishment. His stance was clear. "I've never considered the question you've just asked." "What does Duke Chu mean?" Diwu Qingro humbly asked for advice. "This, cough cough cough." Duke Chu rolled his eyes and thought for a long time. Then he laughed and suddenly leaned back and said, "No matter who wins, it has nothing to do with me. Don't you think so?" This clearly meant, "I can't answer your question, and I haven't done any research. So I might as well act shamelessly. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. You can ask whoever you want." Diwu Qingro was stunned. No matter how the other party answered, he could hear the real meaning behind it. After all, this should be the goal of King of Hell Chu's life. If it was really King of Hell Chu, even if it was a lie, Diwu Qingro would not be able to hide it. No one could blaspheme his life's dream. For an adult with a goal, a dream was as important as his first love. All the men in the world who had been hurt by love could scold all the women in the world, but who would dare to say that the woman of his dreams was a prostitute? Even if she was, he would not dare to say it. Just thinking about it would break his heart. If he said it like that, he would hurt his own heart first. But he had never expected that the other party would be so indifferent. "Since Prime Minister asked me so many questions, I will also ask you one." Chu Yang asked, "Prime Minister, since you are so familiar with Upper 3 Heavens and my Chu clan, could it be that Prime Minister also came down from Upper 3 Heavens?" Diwu Qingro did not speak, but his eyes were deep and he looked at him strangely. Chu Yang knew that something was wrong. He braced himself and asked, "Prime Minister, which clan of Upper 3 Heavens do you come from?" Chapter 260. Chu Yang was startled. Then he scratched his head and said in a childish manner, "I really don't have any impression of it. But should I know?" The implication was, "What kind of big shot are you?" Diwu Qingro smiled strangely and shook his head. "You shouldn't not know. You shouldn't not know." Chu Yang was stunned. Is this guy's sect extremely famous in the Upper 3 Heavens? Is it so famous that even the super aristocratic Chu clan doesn't know about it? But what's the reason for this? Diwu Qingro maintained a meaningful expression. He slowly stood up and said, "Duke, I am very pleased to see you today. If Duke doesn't have any other instructions, I will take my leave. Tea is still warm. Is Duke going back?" Dozens of thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind at this moment. Could it be that I didn't know his identity was a flaw? That's not right. If not, then Diwu Qingro has no other choice but to retreat in order to advance? Chu Yang's mind was racing, but his face was expressionless. He stood up with a smile and said, "Take care, Prime Minister." I won't see you out." He didn't seem to care whether Diwu Qingro left or not. Diwu Qingro chuckled and said, "Many things are complicated. I won't disturb Duke Chu." He slowly stood up and looked at Chu Yang with a meaningful look. "Duke Chu, I won't see you out when you go back. Here, I wish you a safe journey." Chu Yang said gracefully, "Take care, Prime Minister." Diwu Qingro walked out of the room with a smile and went down the stairs accompanied by Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian. Chu Yang politely sent him off, but stopped at the top of the stairs and watched Diwu Qingro leave. King of Hell Chu had fallen into a disadvantageous position in the second confrontation between the two. That was because he couldn't tell whether Diwu Qingro had really seen through the flaw in Chu Yang's words or if he was just bluffing. Even though Chu Yang's temperament was open-minded, a shadow had been left in his heart. Diwu Qingro walked to the corner of the stairs. Chu Yang was ready to turn back to his room. At this moment, Diwu Qingro suddenly turned around. He glared at Chu Yang, who was about to turn around. Then he shouted in a deep voice, "Chu Yang!" Chu Yang acted as if he didn't hear anything. He took a step forward and then turned around. He looked at Diwu Qingro and asked, "Prime Minister, what are you doing?" Diwu Qingro's hawk-like eyes crossed the stairs and stared straight at Chu Yang's face. At this moment, Chu Yang felt a burning pain on his face, as if his face was being burned red by a needle. "It's nothing." This old man's eyes were playing tricks on him. Their eyes met. One of them looked innocent and surprised, with a trace of worry. And Diwu Qingro's eyes were inquisitive. After a long time, Diwu Qingro chuckled and went downstairs. Chu Yang made an "oh" sound, and no longer paid any attention to him. He returned to his room. And sat down. After a long time, cold sweat suddenly appeared on his face, and his white robes were soaked in a flash. Diwu Qingro had come this time and left now. Chu Yang still couldn't feel the outcome of the battle. Chu Yang wasn't sure if he had concealed his identity, or if Diwu Qingro had seen through his identity. Ever since he was reborn, this was the first time something like this had ever happened. Moreover, Diwu Qingro had always held the initiative. Although Chu Yang had successfully turned the tables a few times, the overall initiative had always been in Diwu Qingro's hands. Chu Yang couldn't see through Diwu Qingro's thoughts at all. Diwu Qingro's shout before he left seemed to have some soul-stirring power. It made Chu Yang's mind go into a trance for a moment. If it weren't for the fact that his mind was far more stable than the average person, he would have naturally agreed at that moment. That was close. Gu Duxing looked at Chu Yang and said. Chu Yang nodded lightly. The two of them looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Diwu Qingro's aura was indeed not something an average person could withstand. Diwu Qingro stepped down the stairs, his brows deeply furrowed. Even with his wisdom, he couldn't be sure whether this Chu Feigong was king of Hell Chu or not. He had been taken down on the spot with a show of strength. The other party's arrogance and unreasonableness only belonged to the younger generation of an aristocratic family. Then the initiative was shifted. Diwu Qingro's series of questions seemed to have taken the initiative, but in reality he didn't get anything out of it. From Bao Ho's shout, Diwu Qingro knew that he had lost. Because if he was sure, he wouldn't have shouted. If it was Chu Fei, there was no need to shout. If it was Chu Yang, there was even less need to shout. However, he shouted out loud. This was his last resort today. Diwu Qingro let out a long sigh. This young man, whether he was Chu Fei or Chu Yang, was an extremely terrifying person. There was no need to doubt this point. As he thought, he walked towards the rooms of the Three Heavens officials. When he was halfway there, he suddenly felt something. He turned his head and saw a man in green floating in from outside. He stepped on the stairs, but he was free and easy as if he was riding the clouds. Diwu Qingro turned his head. The other party immediately felt it and turned his head as well. Their eyes met and the space seemed to freeze. A powerful pressure was emitted from the body of the man in green. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were startled. They hurriedly mobilized their auras to resist, but found that they couldn't summon their energy. It was as if their lives were being controlled by someone else. They couldn't help but feel their souls leave their bodies. The next moment, Diwu Qingro withdrew his gaze and turned around, the man in green on the stairs had also quietly disappeared. It was as if he had only seen a blur and nothing had happened. A master! Jing Meng Hun and Yin Wu Tian glanced at each other. Their backs were dripping with cold sweat. The same thought popped up in their minds. Could it be that this black-clothed man is the guardian of those two youngsters? Chu clan. Before noon, Diwu Qingro left Heaven-Reaching Tower. After coming out of Chu Yang's room, he went to look for 3 people, Ao Xie Yun, Mo Tian Yun, and Dong Wulei. The reaction of the 3 people made Diwu Qingro's heart heavy. He didn't even speak on the way. He just frowned and thought about something. Jing Meng Hun and Yin Wu Tian were somewhat surprised. Although the attitude of these 3 brothers was ambiguous, the main purpose of today's visit was to see whether or not Chu Yang was king of Helchu. In their eyes, this Chu Fei Gong was absolutely not king of Helchu. This was already a done deal. No matter how one looked at it, his performance was impeccable. If he wasn't Chu clan's younger brother, how could he know so much about the Chu clan? Even though Jing Meng Hun had been severely scolded by Chu Yang, he didn't doubt Chu Yang's identity. Prime Minister, what do you think? Jing Meng Hun carefully asked. They were already on the road and weren't far from the Prime Minister's residence. There were very few people on the road. What do you think? Diwu Qingro glanced at him. This Chu Fei Gong shouldn't be king of Helchu. Jing Meng Hun said with certainty. Yin Wu Tian nodded calmly to express his agreement. It's between the two. Diwu Qingro slowly shook his head. I can't say for sure. I still think that he may be king of Helchu's incarnation. Jing Meng Hun and Yin Wu Tian felt a little dizzy. The matter was already so clear. Why was Diwu Qingro still holding on to it? If king of Helchu was really the duke of a super clan of the upper 3 heavens, then what was the point of playing around? What was the point of playing around? What if he angered the Chu clan by holding on to it like this? What should he do? Let's wait and see. It won't be too late for me to break the Bankai when king of Helchu makes his move. Diwu Qingro obviously had the same concerns. Before he had set off, he was 80% sure that this Chu Fei Gong was king of Helchu. But after they had met and left, this certainty had dropped to a certain level. Diwu Qingro also felt somewhat uneasy. Diwu Qingro's guess had dropped again when he had seen the black-clothed man. It had become half and half. The remaining half was what Diwu Qingro had said before he left. Did he have to know Diwu Qingro's identity after coming down from the upper 3 heavens? Even Diwu Qingro himself felt that this statement was untenable. However, not knowing Chu Yang's identity was always somewhat suspicious. The remaining 40% was purely Diwu Qingro's intuition. Although this Chu Fei Gong did not show any hostility towards him, deep in Diwu Qingro's heart, he had a stubborn intuition. This is king of Helchu. This feeling did not make any sense. But he was certain. From tonight onwards, we will use our influence on the people we can't catch. Diwu Qingro said slowly, King-level Master Yin will be in charge of this matter. King-level Master Jing, you have to carefully observe tonight's movements. Diwu Qingro's eyes had a deep sense of exhaustion. Tonight, it is fine if the saber and the sword do not appear. But once they appear, I am afraid it will be a terrible bloody storm. Jing Meng Hun cautiously agreed. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was night again. As night fell, the 3 heavenly dukes in the prefecture capital all opened their eyes wide and focused. On the roof of Heaven-Reaching Tower, there were several people whose sleeves were fluttering in the wind. They stared at the flickering lights in the dark night and did not move. In the city, almost all of the buildings with high vantage points had people guarding them. Moreover, these places were basically occupied by king-level masters. But tonight it was very quiet. Even the fights between Jianghu people had decreased a lot. Ask the Heaven Sword did not appear, nor did Underworld Saber. Of course, Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword were also nowhere to be seen. Another day passed. On the afternoon of the second day, someone suddenly discovered the location of Ask the Heaven Sword. After a short period of time, the person holding Ask the Heaven Sword successfully broke out of the encirclement and disappeared. All the king-level masters had made a wasted trip. On the night of the second day, someone discovered asked the heavens sword being chased. So after another fight, they escaped again. In a few days and nights, this kind of situation happened more than 20 times. It was said that the person holding asked the heavens sword and underworld saber was covered in wounds and was exhausted from running for his life. Dozens of king-level masters were like big birds, running here and there. Everyone had a belly full of anger and was about to explode. Finally, a huge commotion began on the night of the 5th day. On the night of the full moon in the sky, the curtains were drawn. When the full moon rose to the middle of the sky from Continent City below, 2 rays of light seemed to be very far away, but suddenly rose up. The sun and moon shining together appeared again. Chapter 261. The full moon rose into the sky above everyone's head, emitting a bright and clear radiance that shrouded the blue dome of heaven and spilled over the earth. The experts who had been exhausted for several days were also somewhat tired. Everyone was guessing, could it be that those 2 fellows were hiding in a mouse hole? Why couldn't they find them even after such a great search? But at this time, a dumbstruck guy suddenly pointed to the sky and shouted himself hoarse. All the absent-minded experts looked up and suddenly stood up with a bang. Above their heads, there were 2 full moons. One was the sun. As for the other 2, although they were not as radiant as the real sun and moon, they were still real existences. Sun and moon shining together. Sunlight saber, moonlight sword. They appeared. Everyone flew up to the sky at the same time. More than 40 crowns glittered in the sky, dazzling the eyes. Near and far, king-level experts were rushing over one after another, and one after another, they propped up their own energy shields. 2 directions, one in the east and the other in the west. Then, the halo of sunlight saber began to move. With a loud roar, the experts soared up and rushed toward that direction. The halo of moonlight sword flickered and immediately disappeared. It seemed that the owner of Moonlight Sword had discovered the abnormality and decisively returned the sword to its sheath. But Sunlight Saber was still flashing. For some unknown reason, the halo of Sunlight Saber was still there even after the disappearance of Moonlight Sword. But now, no one was thinking about this problem. Existence? Existence is leading us to seize it. The light beam on the ground was running in a panic. High up in the sky, the king-level experts who were chasing closely behind had fanatical brilliance in their eyes. Now that Sunlight Saber had appeared, there was no need to think about hiding it. The most important thing now was to see who among the dozens of king-level experts would have the strength to take the lead. There were many people and even more experts. But there was only one Sunlight Saber. Many people were calculating their own allies and enemies, as well as the most powerful person to seize it. Suddenly, with a shio sound, 2 white silhouettes appeared from below like shooting stars chasing after the moon. Everyone! This saber I Chu Mao want it. A clear and bright voice roared, as if announcing the ownership of the saber. Chu Mao? Fuck, who do you think you are? You actually want it? All the king-level experts were furious. Everyone's faces were covered anyway. So no one knew who they were. Why would they care about the upper 3 heavens or the lower 3 heavens under such circumstances? However, the 2 white shadows were very close to Sunlight Saber. All the masters sped up and rushed over as if their lives depended on it. Jing Meng Hun sighed helplessly in the distant sky. As expected, it was just as the Prime Minister had guessed. The direction in which the circle of light was moving was the Imperial Palace. And it was already very close to the palace. The Great Zhao Imperial Palace was the symbol of Great Zhao's imperial power. This was also the most stubborn force against Diwu Qingrou. And they were all gathered here. Although the royalists had been suppressed by Diwu Qingrou all these years, they could not be eradicated. The imperial city had become their last bastion. In Great Zhao's imperial city, experts were as numerous as clouds. The security here far exceeded that of the Iron Cloud Imperial Palace. However, this so-called experts as numerous as the clouds was only a relative term. When dealing with ordinary people of the Jianghu, it could be said that experts were as common as clouds. However, when compared to the dozens of king-level experts from the upper three heavens, it was not as common as clouds. It was like a herd of pigs and sheep. The great Zhao imperial palace reacted quickly. The first thing they did was to rain down arrows like a waterfall. Then, dozens of people jumped out and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the imperial palace? Kill without mercy!" Then, more people rushed out from the top of the imperial palace's walls. The blade was as fast as lightning, and actually carried the radiance of the full moon as it whistled through the air. Laughing maniacally, it collided with the arrows that filled the sky. Ping 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 ping. A few of the imperial guards were sent flying into the air like rubber balls. Following which, the figure riding the full moon blade let out a rumbling sound, followed by a cry of, "Oh, dog ant! Dog ant!" His excited cries entered the imperial palace without any fear. A white shadow followed closely behind. It also rushed in like lightning. The people in the distance looked at him warmly. It was the young master of the Chu clan from the upper three heavens, Chu Fei. However, Chu Yang was so happy that he almost fell from the sky when he heard GMO call out to his dog ant. He still did not understand what GMO meant by dog ant. The imperial palace was immediately alarmed. "Stop, stop." The commander of the imperial palace's guards shouted, "Stop them! Kill without mercy!" He had already seen many people rushing over from the distance. Jing Menghun sighed and closed his eyes. He thought, it would have been better if you didn't say this. Once you say, "Kill without mercy," the imperial palace will really turn into ruins. Sure enough, the people in the imperial palace did not hesitate at all under the command of the imperial palace's guards. They rushed to the top of the imperial palace's magnificent walls. Then, with a rumbling sound, the outer walls of the imperial palace collapsed. These people were all king-level experts of the upper three heavens. The situation was urgent. If they were late, they would lose the treasured saber that was related to the prosperity of their clans. Why would they care about the imperial palace of the lower three heavens? Naturally, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They roared and rushed forward. Almost at the moment of contact, the imperial palace's guards exploded with blood. Then, dozens of king-level experts rushed in like meteors. They entered the imperial palace without any hesitation. Then, the Jianghu army rushed in like a tsunami. Suddenly, there were shrill screams, the sound of the alarm horn, the sound of the palace collapsing, the sound of fighting, and the sound of swords clashing. It was a mess. Dust and smoke billowed. Jing Menghun hung his head sadly in the distance. It's over. There was no way to stop this chaos. Diwu Qingro had always believed that this was King of Hell Chu's evil plan. Even when the upper three heavens clans believed that it was Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword, Diwu Qingro still believed that this was King of Hell Chu's plot. But at that time, it was already uncontrollable. It was just like when Chu Yang had found out that Diwu Qingro was using him to stir up trouble and gather people. He had been helpless and at a loss of what to do. Diwu Qingro knew that this was King of Hell Chu's plot, but he could only watch. He did not know where King of Hell Chu was, nor did he know where the saber and the sword were. He knew that things would develop like this, but he was powerless to stop it. For someone like Diwu Qingro, who was used to being in control, this was the most depressing thing. 7 days ago, King of Hell Chu had suffered such a grievance. Now, the wheel of fortune had turned, and it was finally Diwu Qingro's turn to taste it. These days, Diwu Qingro had been thinking about where King of Hell Chu would trigger this chaos. After thinking for a long time, he decided on the Imperial Palace and Golden Horse Riders Department. For this matter, Diwu Qingro let Jing Menghun use 3 days and 3 nights to make arrangements for Golden Horse Riders Department. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. A group of experts also left their original residence. At present, Golden Horse Riders Department, except for a few people who were left behind to guard the recently captured Jianghu people, the rest were gone. Diwu Qingro also wanted to evacuate these people, but he really did not have enough time. Moreover, there was no place to receive them. These people were still unruly. If there was a mutiny, the loss would be too great. Diwu Qingro could not bear such an accident. Therefore, he had no choice but to leave them here. Now that Jing Menghun looked at the chaos in the Imperial Palace, he finally felt relieved. At least the Imperial Palace was in chaos, and Golden Horse Rider's department would not be in chaos. This was a great fortune in an unfortunate situation. It was not that Diwu Qingro did not inform the Imperial Palace to be on guard. No matter how lawless he was still a minister of great Zhao in name. He even transferred people to help the Imperial Palace evacuate. However, Diwu Qingro's good intentions were ruthlessly rejected by the emperor. Moreover, it was said that the emperor sneered at that time, "Diwu Qingro, do you really think I am stupid? Attack the Imperial Palace? Humph, as long as Diwu Qingro does not attack the Imperial Palace, is there anyone else in this world who is so crazy?" When the messenger reported, Diwu Qingro let out a long sigh. He had given up on the Imperial Palace. He knew that King of Hell Chu would make a move. Moreover, he had calculated it. If there was a riot in Golden Horse Rider's department, the experts of Golden Horse Rider's department could quickly evacuate. Even if there was a riot, it would not be too big. However, the Imperial Palace could not be moved. The people in the Imperial Palace were also weak. The Imperial Palace was the heart of a nation. Since King of Hell Chu had already caused a huge riot, if he let go of a place like the Imperial Palace, then King of Hell Chu would not be King of Hell Chu. However, the Imperial Palace did not trust Diwu Qingro. They mercilessly rejected Diwu Qingro's good intentions. Diwu Qingro could only give up on this effort. In fact, he was just making a gesture. The Imperial Palace was already on fire. The flames were so bright that half the sky was red. The surrounding troops came to calm the chaos. Minister Chu, dressed in white, was running back and forth in the Imperial Palace. Rather than saying that he was here to fight for Sunlight Saber, it was better to say that he was here to cover for GMO. Once the owner of Sunlight Saber was in danger, Duke Chu would descend from the sky and rush into the battle. However, once he rushed in, the king-level leaders would be restrained and unable to act freely. Who would dare to kill Duke Chu of Upper Three Heavens in front of so many people? Wouldn't that be courting death? There were countless witnesses here. Thus, Duke Chu was awe-inspiring. Wherever he went, there was no one. Moving left and right, the owner of Sunlight Saber would find time to control the saber and say in a strange voice, "Dog Ant, I am running away from Upper Three Heavens." Thus, they began to chase after him again. "Too dark. I can't see anything. Motherfucker, wouldn't it be much better if we set it on fire?" Duke Chu yelled. The king-level leaders immediately realized that it was too difficult to find someone in this dark place. Even though Duke Chu was a troublemaker, his words were very reasonable. No one knew who started it, but everyone started a fire at the same time. A king-level leader somehow found the Imperial Palace's oil storage. Barrels of oil, no matter what kind of oil it was, were thrown into the fire like dumplings. Puff 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 boom boom boom. Chapter 262. The fire in the palace was so bright that it was as bright as day. But the thick smoke, to put it bluntly, could be seen for hundreds of miles. In the city, it was as if a nation had been destroyed. Young Master Jianghu was dragged out of bed by a king-level master. He rushed to the palace with sleepy eyes. The king-level expert had opened the way. So, everything went smoothly. It wasn't easy for them to enter the battle circle. So, they were about to unwillingly start the fight. However, they didn't expect that they would suddenly hear someone say, "Oh, Dog Ant. Motherfucker." Jianghu was stunned. He suddenly cursed and spat. Then he turned around and left. Young Master. Young Master?" The three king-level masters were puzzled. They hurriedly chased after him. Everyone was extremely depressed. This Grand Duke was too unambitious. He just came to take a look and left? Didn't he see that the other clans were fighting until their eyes were red? The Ji clan will withdraw from this fight. Jianghu glared fiercely and roared in a low voice, "Whoever is disobedient, get lost." After he finished speaking, he turned around and rushed back. On the way, he cursed, "Motherfucker! Motherfucker! Motherfucker! motherfucker, 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 motherfucker. Just as he left the palace, he bumped into Luo Kuwu. Where are you going? I'm going back to sleep. Why do you care? Jianghu rolled his eyes. Luo Kuwu was puzzled. Going back to sleep? Going back to sleep at this time? Get out of the way. A good dog doesn't block the way. Young Master Jianghu was in a bad mood. He felt that he had been tricked. Who are you scolding? Luo Kuwu glared and was about to fly into a rage. However, he was surrounded by the king-level masters of the clan. He only had time to say, Jianghu, you motherfucker, remember this. This time I will remember you. This idiot. Jianghu spat in disdain. His saliva was spat out. Behind him, young Master Luo Kuwu and the others had already rushed into the thick smoke and fire. With a loud rumble, the main hall of the palace collapsed. No one knew who did it, but the main hall of the palace collapsed. GMO was finally unable to do anything. In fact, he was already exhausted. Under the pursuit of a group of sovereigns, it was not easy for him to persist until now. Unfortunately, the person he was waiting for hadn't arrived yet. He could only persevere. GMO jumped out of the fire and was overjoyed when he saw it. Wah, he's here. He saw that Emo Tianyun was leading the experts of his clan to search this place from a short distance away. He was very handsome. Over there, Ao Xie Yun arrived with the king-level experts of the Ao clan. There were also several sovereigns from other clans rushing over like shooting stars. It was truly an opportunity bestowed by the heavens today. Spare me. Spare my life. I don't want this saber anymore. GMO suddenly screamed and jumped out. Mo Tianyun, Ao Xie Yun, Dong Wulei, Xie Dan Qiong, and the others looked towards them as soon as they came out. Their eyes revealed a fiery radiance. Here you go. Not waiting for anyone to answer, GMO had already thrown out his hand blade. Then he turned around and fled. But who cared about him now? Everyone's eyes were attracted to the saber that was flying through the air. The sunlight saber emitted a dazzling light under the illumination of the fire. Everyone's eyes were burning as they flew along with the saber. It was not clear whether it was intentional or not, but sunlight saber flew towards Mo Tianyun. Impudent. Mine. Charge. Motherfucker. Snatch it for me. This sentence was shouted by Li Xiong too, the young master who had just arrived. His voice was so excited that it changed pitch. Kill. Mo Tianyun was overjoyed. Ao Xie Yun was shocked. Xie Dan Qiong's eyes flashed. Dong Wulei held the saber hilt. Luo Kuwu shouted and rushed forward. A king-level expert of the Mo clan jumped out in joy and reached out to grab the saber flying towards him. Mo Tianyun was already prepared. As soon as the saber was in his hand, he would immediately turn around and leave. He would not train anymore and return to Ping Three Heavens. Mo Tianyun had never thought that he would be able to get both the saber and the sword at this moment. But as long as he had Sunlight Saber, it meant that he had half the secret of becoming a martial saint. As for the other half, it could be a scheme, an exchange, or an alliance. He had plenty of methods. Stop! Stop him! Loud shouts were heard. Countless hidden weapons flew towards the Mo clan people at the same time. The hidden weapons were exploding. 3 king-level experts rushed out at the same time. A powerful energy storm was formed in an instant. The reaction of the 3 king-level experts could be said to be extremely fast and accurate at this critical moment. The sword and saber flashed at the same time and knocked the projectile to the side. The other person didn't care about his life anymore. He used his chi to protect his body and rushed towards the projectile and sunlight saber. Mo Tianyun's face showed a proud smile. They were the closest. At this moment, even if an immortal came, he would not be able to stop the Mo clan people from getting the saber first. It was at this moment that something inconceivable happened. The saber, which was flying at high speed in the air, suddenly stopped. It stopped in the air. Then, it suddenly flew back. Motherfucker! There are threads on the saber. Mo Tianyun cursed in a very rare fashion. His handsome face turned ferocious as he cursed loudly, "This bastard! This bastard!" This kind of treasure was about to be in his hands, But he missed it? Young Master Mo was about to collapse. At this moment, a silver coin flashed. Sunlight Saber, which was flying back at high speed, made a bang sound and fell from the sky. Ao Xie still had a few copper coins left in his hand. Just now, he used a copper coin to break the threads on the saber. Now, the saber was slowly falling. And the place where it fell was between the Ao clan and the Mo clan. The king-level experts of the Ao clan and the Mo clan rushed forward like wolves and tigers. At this moment, there was a sudden bang. At the place where Sunlight Saber was about to fall, something exploded. A black fog with a sweet smell spread out. In an instant, it covered an area of 3 feet. The moment the black fog rose, Sunlight Saber finally fell to the ground with a bang sound. In the area covered by the black fog, a voice said with a smile, "Everyone be careful. This is the bone-eroding bewitching fragrance. Once you touch it, your bones will turn into black water. Don't blame me for not warning you." All the experts stopped at the same time. The fastest king-level expert of the Mo clan had already extended his hand into the black fog. He hastily retracted his hand, but his right palm had already turned jet black. Black water was flowing out from the tip of his fingers. It was so sore and itchy that he could not help but cry out, "Little poisonous thing." Mo Tianyun and Ao Hua Yun roared at the same time. Their eyes were sharp as they turned their heads to look. A young man in black with a shy smile appeared at the edge of the circle. Behind him were 2 old men in black. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I already told you, but you still put your hand in." The young man in black said regretfully, This hand is about to turn into black water. What should I do? This is the hand of a king-level master." This young man looked weak and shy, but when he did things, he was extremely ruthless. Moreover, he didn't show any mercy at all. "Take out the antidote." Mo Tianyun shouted angrily. The right hand of the king-level master of the Mo clan had already turned black and swollen. The black water was also flowing out faster and faster from his fingertips. Even with the power of a king-level master, he had no resistance against this poison. And now, the saber was surrounded by this poison. "Oh, I also want to take out the antidote, but I am greedy and want the saber." The black-robed youngster looked at Mo Tianyun in grief. "My strength is too weak. Brother Mo, please lend me a hand, okay?" Mo Tianyun almost fainted from anger. However, his eyes revealed an extremely conflicted expression. As long as he got Sunlight Saber, it would be time for the Mo clan to soar. But the injured king-level master in front of him was an important expert of the Mo clan. If he did not save him, wouldn't he be disappointed? "Brother Mo, could it be that this broken saber is more important than the life of a king-level master of your clan?" The young man in black blinked and said. The muscles on Mo Tianyun's face twitched. His expression changed a dozen times in an instant. In the dark, Chu Yang's attention was focused on the black-robe youth. Looking at this guy's carefree and ruthless appearance, Chu Yang had already come to a conclusion in his heart. It seems that this guy is the future one of the 12 influential figures of the 3 heavens, poison spirit. He looked at the saber on the ground. At this moment, the black fog was gradually thinning. It was still the closest to the Mo clan. He would be able to grab it with a single leap. Mo Tianyun's eyes flashed with a struggling expression. Suddenly, he yelled with anger, "Uncle Chenguit, I have let you down today. For the sake of the Mo clan, I order you to take Sunlight Saber." The injured king-level master was the Mo clan's king-level master, Mo Chingge. According to seniority, he was Mo Tianyun's uncle. Ao Xie eyes showed a vigilant expression. Mo Tianyun's ruthlessness was on full display at this moment. For the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan. Mo Chingge's eyes flashed with sadness. He knew that the other party used poison to threaten him to get the Mo clan's help. Since Mo Tianyun had already rejected the other party's offer, it meant that his life was already gone. Chapter 263. Before he could finish his sentence, Mo Qinggui's eyes turned into two black holes. His mouth was full of rotten white teeth. His whole body turned into a black liquid. This bone-eroding poison fog was so tyrannical. He screamed and gathered the last of his strength into his left hand. He slapped his own forehead. Kacha! Blood splattered everywhere and turned into a black fog. His whole body fell down. The Mo clan had just started the fight and already lost a king-level master. Mo Tianyun jumped up and took out a snow-white beast skin. He wrapped it around the incoming sunlight saber and said without batting an eyelid, "Charge out." He did not even look at his uncle's body that was turning into black liquid. Ao Xie Yun roared, "Stop the people of the Mo clan." Xie Dan Qiong, Li Xiong too, and the others shouted. Young Poison Spirit gritted his teeth and waved his hand. The two old men behind him also took out their sabers and swords. Si Shi from the various great clans rushed towards the Mo clan's people. Gu Yenyang! Gu Yenyu! Help me stop them! Mo Tianyun screamed and rushed out without a care. He shouted, "The secret of Sunlight Saber, I, Mo Tianyun, promise that the Gu clan will have a share. Tianyun, swear to the heavens that if I go against it, the heavens will abandon me." In front of so many people, Mo Tianyun swore an oath in order to get Sunlight Saber. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyang became spirited. Moreover, the two clans were allies to begin with. They would help each other, advance and retreat together. Moreover, there would be such a huge benefit. So, the two of them would kill Gu Duxing first if they were to obtain this benefit. Then, the two brothers would divide the country equally. Gu Duxing's talent was extraordinary. Leaving him alive would be a big problem in the future. The two brothers seemed to have eaten an aphrodisiac. They screamed, "Stop them!" Then they rushed forward. The two king-level masters of the Gu clan had bitter expressions on their faces. "You two idiots! Why did you let Mo Tianyun use the Gu clan until it became dregs?" In an instant, the battle between the king-level masters erupted like a volcano. Without any warning, it became a mess. And it wasn't just one or two, but dozens of them. At this moment, Great Zhao's imperial palace had truly become an imperial palace. Looking at the sky, there were a total of 50 crowns shining brightly. He was moving. He was risking his life. In the history of the lower three heavens, which kingdom's imperial palace could have such a grand scene? Only Great Zhao. Only Great Zhao. After this battle, the Great Zhao Kingdom would be immortalized in the history of the lower three heavens. Even though the royal family of Great Zhao wanted to cry but had no tears, but this was also a kind of glory, right? At the end of this affair, when the curtain fell on the struggle for hegemony between the two countries, a famous poet wrote a poem about what had happened that night, on a cold winter night with a full moon. The stars rest together. The saber tilted to cause chaos. All the princes congregate, corpses piled up like mountains. Blood flowed like the sea, a fist rushed towards the heavens. One sword she bullfighting, thrones were everywhere. Wu Zun was inferior to a dog. Take a look at the broken bones and flesh. All of them could be conferred the title of Marquis. The two countries came to war. They both attacked and defended each other. The universe overturned itself. There was only autumn in the 4 seasons. Great Zhao's hegemony withered. Diwu is too gentle. The rise and fall of ancient times. All in the hands of the king of hell. Cough cough, so wet, so wet. At this moment, the Great Zhao royal palace was bustling with noise and excitement. GMO had already completed his mission, but he was also exhausted. He pointed towards a direction, and then GMO Butong appeared like a ghost. He carried GMO on his back and ran. From this moment on, the two of them would officially leave the lower three heavens. Chu Yang hid in the shadows and watched the two of them leave. His eyes were full of emotions. "Thank you, my brothers. If not for you, I would have suffered a crushing defeat in this chaotic place. We will meet again in the upper three heavens. At that time, we will fight side by side." The so-called sunlight saber had already been used. Chu Yang nimbly changed out of his white clothes and put on a black mask. Under the mask, there was even a wisp of beard. Just by looking at this masked man, he should not be young. Now was the best time to fish in troubled waters. This opportunity was not to be missed. Emotian Yun, would he die here? Today, could he give Gu Duxing a big gift? Chu Yang was eager to try. The king-level experts of the Gu clan were already struggling left and right. And the king-level experts of the Mo clan were rushing left and right. But they were still blocked. King-level masters of more than 20 great clans were all gathered here. What chance did they have to escape? Mo Tianyun continued to use his bow to lure, split up, sneak attack, and plot, but he still could not get out. Because in the end, the one who blocked his way was Ao Xie-yun, who he knew very well. When these two rivals met, Mo Tianyun immediately shut up. No matter what he said to this guy, it was like playing the lute to a cow. He would not believe him. So, there was no need to waste time and effort. Mo Tianyun, leave Sunlight Saber. Ao Xie-yun said indifferently. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was arrogant and bossy. It was as if he was commanding someone from a higher position. If it were you, would you stay? Mo Tianyun snorted. How many king-level masters does your Mo clan have? Ao Xie-yun snorted coldly. In front of so many people, no one dares to kill a clan heir like you and me. This is true. However, your clan's masters are not included. If they die, they will die for nothing. If they all die, do you think you can keep Sunlight Saber? Whether I can keep it or not, I will have to try to know. Mo Tianyun said coldly. Ao Xie-yun, do you think these people are with you? Which one of them does not want Sunlight Saber? Even if it is in your hands, would it not be a fight? Then why don't you just shift the blame to me? Ao Xie-yun smiled. You are not worthy. Mo Tianyun rolled his eyes. Shift the blame to you? Who would shift the blame to you unless they were at the end of their rope? Suddenly, a scream came from the field. A king-level master of the Gu clan suddenly fell down. On his chest, a beautiful viburnum flower bloomed. Outside the field, Xie Dan Qiong, who had been watching the fight, was pale. He gasped for breath. Just now, two king-level masters of the Gu clan had surrounded a king-level master of the Xie clan. The situation was not good. If there was an opening here, the Mo clan could follow the Gu clan and rush out. Therefore, Xie Dan Qiong used all his strength and shot out his own secret weapon. Viburnum flower. When the viburnum flower comes out, 100 flowers go out. With Xie Dan Qiong's current strength, he could only use one attack. But it was this one attack that destroyed a king-level master. The remaining king-level master of the Gu clan screamed like a madman. He abandoned his position to protect the two dukes. He roared and cursed as he flew toward Xie Dan Qiong on his sword. The two king-level masters of the Xie clan jumped up at the same time and blocked in the air. At this moment, Ao Xie-yun, Li Xiong too, and Xie Dan Qiong all felt a sense of danger. They could not help but look up. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu were still yelling, "Kill him! Kill him!" A sharp sword wind suddenly appeared. This sword seemed to carry with it an ancient desolation. Millions of cold lights flashed in the cold night sky. A black shadow wearing black clothes and a black mask appeared. Under the black mask, there was a wisp of beard fluttering in the wind. But this black shadow carried with it an unstoppable cold light and suddenly rushed out from the fire. Rushed out from the fire that soared to the sky. A sword, faintly visible in his hand, transformed into a dragon that soared through the clouds. Rushed into the crowd. Wherever this sword went, even a king-level master would feel cold all over. Everyone had a feeling. This sword absolutely did not belong to the human world. This was a sword from the heavens. A sword from the demons. A sword from the underworld. Even if there was a mountain in front of this sword would still be able to cut it into pieces. Everyone was shocked. The king-level masters who were in the middle of a fierce battle could not help but dodge. Millions of cold lights, carrying with them an aura that could devour the heavens, rushed in. Unimpeded, it rushed over the heads of the 13 king-level masters. Then, with a flash of blood, the cold light suddenly flashed in the air like a bolt of lightning. It slanted into the sky, turned in the air, and disappeared like a meteor. This sword, from the beginning to the end, only took a short time, not even enough to blink an eye. The sword light was far away, but the chill on everyone's body was not yet gone. Who would be able to execute such a sword move? Who could block it? There was no lack of king-level masters among the experts present. But now, even king-level masters were sweating profusely. Everyone closed their eyes to recall this sword, and a feeling of powerlessness rose in their hearts. If the target of this sword had been me, I wouldn't have been able to dodge it. Only 3 necks would have been waiting to be slaughtered. Not good. Aosia Yun shouted, "Whose sword is it?" Everyone suddenly woke up from a dream. This sword had suddenly appeared, and was not without a purpose. But who was its target? All the king-level masters were shocked, and looked at the young master they were protecting. But they felt relieved after a glance. The young master is fine. But at this time, young master, what happened to you? A mournful voice echoed. Everyone's body shook, and they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw that the only remaining king-level master of the Gu clan was crying out in grief and indignation. Suddenly, he raised his head, and tragically roared, "Heavens! How can this be?" In front of him, the 2 brothers, Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu, were standing there like wooden chickens. Their eyes were ashen and filled with disbelief, but their throats were spurting out thin lines of blood like fountains. This sword had killed 2 people at the same time, the 2 young masters of the Gu clan. The 2 heirs of the Gu clan. There were only 2 of them. After this sword, it could be said that the Gu clan had no more descendants. Mo Tianyun looked at the king-level master of the Gu clan, who was screaming in pain. His body involuntarily trembled, and his eyes were filled with fear. Everyone was dumbstruck. This bow and sword came like thunder and left like lightning. Everyone only had time to see a black-clothed and masked figure. They couldn't even see the figure clearly. The only impression they had was the fluttering beard under the mask. Where could they find the culprit? Chu Yang had already left the royal palace. After releasing this sword, he immediately left. No matter what happened here, it had nothing to do with him. This sword was, 1 ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. Chapter 264. It was not that Chu Yang did not want to kill Mo Tianyun, but Mo Tianyun had a king-level master protecting him. This sword relied on its sharpness. As long as it was blocked, it would return empty-handed. With Chu Yang's current strength, he could not break through to the point where he could kill a king-level master and Mo Tianyun. Also, if he did not succeed, he would face the danger of being left behind. There were dozens of king-level masters present. And Chu Yang only had the strength for 1 attack. If he was left behind, then it would all be over. Of course, Chu Yang had to choose something he was 100% sure of. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyang's royal guards had 1 dead and 1 separated. There was no one more suitable targets than these 2. He did not have the confidence to kill Mo Tianyun, so he decided to give Gu Duxing a big present. Kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. 1 sword strike like thunder. 1 sword strike complete. He immediately retreated. Even after he had retreated for a long time, the place was still silent. The crackling sounds of the flames all around made the place even more noisy. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu did not say a word from beginning to end. Their throats gurgled as they looked in front of them in disbelief. Then, they slowly fell down facing the sky. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked up at the sky. Frozen. Even in death, the 2 of them had never imagined that they would be killed by an assassin in such a place where there was absolutely no danger at all. Shouldn't they be fighting for Sunlight Saber? Shouldn't they be paying attention to Mo Tianyun and Aosia Yun? Shouldn't they be? How could this be? How could this be? The 2 bodies fell down with a loud bang. Eternal darkness covered all their questions. The king-level master of the Gu clan stood there in a daze. In that moment, he felt like he was in a nightmare. 4 people came from the Gu clan, 2 dukes and 2 king-level masters. But in the blink of an eye, the other king-level master was killed by Xie Dan Qiong on the spot. and the other two dukes were killed in less than a second after the death of the king-level master. She was the only one left. Mo Tianyun and Ao Xie-yun looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The terror of this sword caused the two of them to feel a chill in their hearts. The two of them thought, if I didn't have any guards by my side and had to face the enemy's attack like Gu Yenyang and the rest, what would happen to me? Thinking of this, a chill ran down his spine. That king-level expert of the Gu clan ferociously stamped his feet. Then he stooped down and piled up the 3 corpses one by one. He then carried them on his shoulder. Then he looked at Xie Danqiong with hatred in his eyes. Then he didn't say a word and walked out in large strides. Go back, take his brother's bones, take his young master's body, and return. Someone had to report this matter to the family. Even though it would be a dead end for him if he went back, he still had to bring this matter back. The main culprit had become Xie Danqiong. Xie Danqiong had killed a king-level expert. Moreover, he had diverted another king-level expert. Even Ao Xie-yun and Mo Tianyun wouldn't believe that this assassination had nothing to do with Xie Danqiong. This was clearly planned for a long time. I diverted him and you killed him. Plus, Xie Danqiong's fiancée had been crazily pursued by Gu Yenyang. How could the arrogant Xie Danqiong not be angry? He had every reason to kill Gu Yenyang. Even though this matter seemed unrelated on the surface, the more unrelated the matter was, the more related it was. Watching the king-level expert leave, Xie Danqiong's face was gloomy. Only he knew. This time he was carrying a huge black pot. Even though he wanted to kill Gu Yenyang, even though he was angry because of this matter and killed a king-level expert of the Gu clan, he really didn't do anything to Gu Yenyang. But he didn't say anything. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Mo Tianyun. He gravely said, Mo Yun, brother Mo, I want Sunlight Saber. His voice was cold and full of killing intent. The meaning of the threat was clear. If you don't give it to me, I will kill you. I dare to kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. I don't care if I kill Mo Tianyun. If you don't obey, Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu will serve as an example. Xie Danqiong knew that he was being framed, but he couldn't defend himself. While he couldn't defend himself, he took advantage of this misunderstanding. Didn't you think it was my people who did it? Fine, I won't admit it, but I won't deny it either. But I want the saber. Mo Tianyun's face changed. Could it be that Xie Danqiong dared to let the assassin kill him again? This was something he had to guard against. He immediately signaled with his eyes. The 2 king-level experts of the Mo clan immediately stood in front and behind him. Xie Danqiong, you are so crazy. In the training grounds, you are not allowed to kill your clan's younger brothers. It seems that you don't care about that? Mo Tianyun's pupils shrank. Brother Mo, we are all sensible people. Xie Danqiong coldly said, you give? Or not? Presumptuous. The 2 remaining king-level experts of the Mo clan angrily shouted, Elder Xie, with our elder status, how can your Xie clan touch him? Brother Ao. Xie Danqiong raised his eyebrows. He ignored the 2 king-level experts and said, Brother Ao, I will share the secret of the saber with you as long as you agree to stand on the sidelines. Brother Xie, I will also share the secret of the saber with you as long as you agree to stand on the sidelines. Ao Xie-yun slightly smiled, what do you think? Ha, Brother Ao is very funny. Xie Danqiong's expression turned cold as he laughed out loud. I guarantee that everyone will get a copy of the secret of the saber as long as you stand on the sidelines and let me take it. Tu Qianhao strode forward and laughed loudly. Get out of my way. This saber belongs to me, Li Xiong too. Li Xiong too fiercely rushed in with his curly beard. He extended his hand to grab the leather package in Mo Tianyun's hand. Mo Tianyun roared. He shook his hand, and a colorful chain came out of his sleeve. It made a bang sound in the air, and went towards Li Xiong too like a thunderbolt. The 2 king-level experts of the Mo clan attacked at the same time. The 2 king-level experts of the Li clan roared like thunder and rushed forward. Xie Danqiong waved his hand and the Xie clan's experts also rushed forward. Ao Xie heaved a long sigh and shouted, "Grab it!" The three Ao clan's experts behind him also rushed forward. Tu Qianhao laughed out loud and said, "Lively! Extremely lively!" He waved his hand, and the two clan also joined the battle. The other big clans also joined in one after another. They couldn't tell who their opponents were and started to fight. The young poison spirit stood far away from the battle and looked at the scene. His eyes were like two poisonous snakes, coldly looking back and forth. The sound of horses' hooves shook the sky. The great Zhao's army had arrived. The sound of fighting echoed from the periphery. The people of Jianghu had already started to fight with the army. A thunderous shout was heard, "Everyone inside, stop. Otherwise you will be killed." The two old king-level experts behind Poison Spirit laughed out loud. They went forward and said disdainfully, "The 10 clans of the 3 heavens are doing something here. Anyone who dares to obstruct will be killed without mercy." The leading general was stunned. He looked at the dozens of dazzling crowns in the sky and was speechless for a long time. At this moment, a crown appeared in the sky from afar and shouted, "Prime Minister Diwu has ordered the army to retreat quickly. Everything here will be decided by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Diwu will bear all the consequences." It was the 4th king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Hall, Wu Tian. With such a guarantee, the people inside fought even more recklessly. Mo Tianyun became more and more embarrassed. Seeing that the treasured saber was about to be lost, he suddenly screamed and threw the saber into the air. He shouted, "Whoever has the ability can take it." Ao Xie frowned. Sunlight saber spun in the air and rose straight up. Mo Tianyun's throw was very big. He threw the saber dozens of feet high. Everyone stopped at the same time. Sunlight saber began to fall. 40 or 50 figures jumped up at the same time. They rose into the air and fought with each other. It was extremely brilliant. The saber was about to fall, but the winner had not been decided yet. A king-level master shouted and suddenly struck Xiang Yan with his palm. Suddenly, sunlight saber flew high into the air again. Thus, the saber fell and flew up again. It fell again and flew up again. Below, more than 50 king-level masters fought to be the first to use their big moves. A king-level master of the Li clan screamed and rolled out like a ball. Li Xiong too was furious and shouted, "Fuck your ancestors. Who did this?" However, the clamor of the crowd and the incessant cursing and swearing drowned out his words immediately. Mo Tianyun threw out the saber and immediately retreated to the side. Under his signal, the 2 king-level masters of the Mo clan also temporarily withdrew from the battle. Standing on the side, Mo Tianyun's eyes flashed as he watched the battle. At the same time, Dong Wulei and Xie Danqiong also took their people and left. Who did not know Mo Tianyun's intentions. This guy clearly wanted to take advantage of the situation. But everyone wanted to take advantage of the situation. Ao Xie frowned and shouted, "Everyone, stop. Please listen to me. We cannot continue to fight like this. I have a plan that can prevent unnecessary fights." The other dukes also felt the same. They all shouted to stop. Everyone formed a circle. Sunlight saber fell from the sky. With a clang, the tip of the saber fell to the ground. With a schwa sound, it penetrated the thick stone floor. Even the handle of the saber was gone. Only a hole was left on the ground. All the dukes sucked in a breath of cold air. What a sharp knife! Their eyes were burning with passion. Not to mention the secret of the saber itself was already a rare treasure in the world. "We have 10 clans here." Ao Xie stepped forward and said, "I have calculated carefully. If we count the clans here according to their alliances, there are 7 alliances. Each has their own allies. I propose that each alliance send out 1 person to compete. The winner will be the king. The winner will get Sunlight Saber and no one will object. How about it?" "Nonsense. You, Ao Shiyun, must have prepared an expert to win. That's why you said that. Who would be fooled by you? Fair competition? Is there any fairness in this world?" Mo Tianyun shouted, "This is clearly your scheme." Mo Tianyun was both angry and anxious. A king-level master died for no reason, and he couldn't get his hands on Sunlight Saber. He finally found an opportunity to throw the saber and take advantage of the situation, but Ao Xie-yun saw through his plan. Chapter 265. But Imo Tianyun's words were very popular. Most people had the same thought. Since Imo Tianyun suggested it, why would he suggest it if he didn't have control over himself? Many people clamored. I think it's feasible. Li Xiong-tu shouted and looked around. In my opinion, there is no need for the alliances to send out representatives. Let the aristocratic families fight one by one. The winner will get Sunlight Saber. What do you think? Everyone present was the first duke of each aristocratic family, the successor of the sun. Every one of them had their eyes on the top of their heads and thought highly of themselves. Who would admit that they were inferior to others? Li Xiong-tu's words immediately attracted a lot of response. Good. Ao Xie-yun smiled helplessly and said, that's good. However, this matter should be done sooner rather than later. No one can take this saber back, not even the aristocratic families. I guarantee that this saber will still be there after one night. Why don't we compete with the aristocratic families right here and now? Brother Ao is right. Tu Qianhao immediately agreed. Li Xiong-tu strode out and said to the soldiers who were still outside, get a few of you here. Hurry up and clear the place. Get your emperor and empress out. We're taking over this place. Everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard the tone of the King of Darkness. We are taking this place? Bro, the place I'm talking about is the royal palace of a country, but all the officials felt very satisfied. So what if it is the royal palace? We are taking it. That is taking it. Since ancient times, no one has taken the royal palace. This is the first time since the beginning of time. The leading general immediately turned red. He was so angry that his chest was about to explode. It has always been the government taking the people. Since when was the royal palace taken by others? In his anger, he was about to give the order to attack without hesitation. General Shao, do as this official says. Following an elegant voice, Di Wuqing rose slowly approached on a horse. Bring the emperor and the others out. Then he cupped his hands towards Ao Xie-yun and Imo Tianyun and said with a smile, this time, we will take a step back. The royal palace can be temporarily handed over to you. However, after this matter, you must give me, Di Wuqing Ro, a punishment. Li Xiong-tu snorted coldly. His curly beard trembled as he said indifferently, what if we don't give you this method? Di Wuqing Ro narrowed his eyes and said, then, even the great clans of the three heavens will have to give this old man a punishment. His voice was resolute and decisive, and it actually carried a faint murderous aura. Seeing that the lawless Li Xiong-tu was about to fall out with Di Wuqing Ro, Ao Xie-yun hurriedly came out to mediate. Prime Minister, your words are too serious. We had no choice but to borrow the palace this time. After this matter, no matter what, I will definitely give you an explanation. He glared fiercely at Li Xiong-tu and scolded in a low voice, idiot. Once the situation turns sour, this saber will become Great Zhao's. Li Xiong-tu repeatedly agreed. He clasped his hands nervously and said without thinking, Prime Minister is indeed far-sighted, wise and heroic, handsome and suave, that a man of striking appearance, devastatingly beautiful, peerless and unparalleled. But Ao Xie-yun twisted his ear and pulled him back. He was both angry and amused. Just a moment ago, this guy was scolding her, and now he was praising her without any sincerity at all. Di Wuqing Ro had a good temperament, but he was so angry that the muscles on his face started to twitch. He flicked his sleeves and said, that's it. He turned his head and shouted, General Shao, what are you waiting for? Then he turned around and left. If he stayed here any longer, Di Wuqing Ro reckoned that he would be angered to death by Li Xiong-tu before he was killed by King of Hell Chu. While Great Zhao was organizing the evacuation, they were formally discussing how to divide the spoils. The entire royal palace has been burning until now. This royal palace has basically been declared to be scrapped. Even if the fire was put out now, only broken walls and broken tiles would be left. It would be better to leave it as a source of light for them. General Xiao waved his hand and angrily left with his soldiers. Now, a duke wants to participate in the battle. Ao Xieyun held a lot in his hand and said, Great Zhao's family comes to me to draw lots. One person will get a bye in every round. Don't kill him. Moreover, the next round will start after a quarter of an hour after the end of the round. In other words, the remaining people will lose their qualifications to compete in the first round. Then, 5 people will be selected in the second round. 3 people will be selected in the third round. And the owner of the treasured saber will be decided in the fourth round. Ying Tianyun coldly said. At this moment, a shy and astringent voice said, Brother Ao, brother, may I ask if poison can be used in this competition? Mo Tianyun fiercely looked over as if he had been bitten by a poisonous snake when he heard these words. If looks could kill, Mo Tianyun would have already dismembered this guy who had just spoken. It was Poison Spirit who had spoken. Poison. Dusha. Ao Xieyun also had a headache. Is there an antidote for all the poisons? Of course. Du Xiao blinked. Bastard. Mo Tianyun angrily shouted. Is there an antidote for the bone-eroding fog? There is no such antidote. Du Xiao shamelessly said, but it can be alleviated. It needs to be alleviated every 10 days, damn it. Li Xiong Tu and Tu Ganhao cursed at the same time. Once poisoned, if they did not want to turn into black water, wouldn't they become Du Xiao's slave? Since there is an antidote, you can join. Ao Xieyun made the final decision and said, Come, let's draw lots. If there is one left, it will be mine. Thus, under Ao Xieyun's leadership, the 10 great clans began to draw lots for the competition. Perhaps even Ao Xieyun himself didn't expect that other than a few unexpected clans, the drawing of lots this time would actually faintly determine the ranking of the clans in the next 3 days. It was the same as the results of the competition. While the royal palace was in full swing fighting for Sunlight Saber, Chu Yang had already returned to Heaven-Reaching Tower. He had changed his clothes and taken a bath. There was a cup of tea in front of him. The fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. He held a book in his hand and crossed his legs. He was very relaxed. After a while, Guda, the fastest, Du Xing, finally came back. How is it over there? Chu Yang asked. It's over there already? So fast? Du Xing asked in surprise. They should still be fighting for the saber, but my matter has temporarily come to an end. Chu Yang casually said, The royal palace is finished. According to what I saw with my own eyes, there were probably a few concubines and officials who were buried there. There were about 30,000 people who died around the royal palace. That's all. Cough, cough. Du Xing choked. That's all? Are you still not satisfied? I am a little dissatisfied. Because these clans and the army will not fight in the 3 heavens. Chu Yang said with some dissatisfaction, if they fight, it would be even better. If they really fight, then there would be no need for King of Hell Chu. Du Xing sneered. It was unknown whether it was praise or derision. My side is fine. Dong Wushang is still preparing. Du Xing said, Dong Wushang wants to detonate the Moonlight Sword at the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department. That's a good idea. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and laughed. Remember, we must take advantage of this opportunity to release all the people that Diwu Qinro captured. Even if we can't release all of them, we must at least release some of them. Otherwise, this plan will ultimately fail. Don't worry. Du Xing grinned and said excitedly, Let me tell you a piece of good news. After talking with Jie Wushang, I suddenly comprehended the principles of the saber and sword. I'm afraid that it won't be long before I become a 3rd-grade revered sword. That's really good news. Chu Yao praised. I also have a piece of good news to tell you. What is it? Du Xing asked. He had not yet woken up from the pleasant surprise of breaking through. Cough, cough. Gu Yenyang is dead. Chu Yang coughed twice and said, I killed him. Du Xing was immediately dumbstruck. Gu Yenyang is dead? You killed him. After a long time, Du Xing looked at Chu Yang with a complicated expression. There was a hint of confusion and melancholy. There was also a hint of relief. I killed him. Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. What do you think? I'm just thinking, how could foster father accept this matter? Gu Duxing sat down in a daze. Gu Yenyang's death is not regrettable. With his actions, I wanted to kill him long ago, but I couldn't. Besides, my heart is in a mess. If Sister Miao knew, she would be sad. There's one more thing. Chu Yang said quietly. What is it? Gu Duxing smiled bitterly. Gu Yenyu is also dead. Chu Yang looked up at him. I killed him. Gu Duxing stood up fiercely and gasped for breath. You really dare? Gu Duxing stood up like a horse that had taken aphrodisiac. He ran back and forth in the room for a while, dazzling Chu Yang's eyes. He kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. What should we do? What should I do? What should I do? Chu Yang said sympathetically, What should I do? Gu Duxing sat down dejectedly. His heart was suddenly at a loss. The two people who had bullied him since he was a child, who had set him up many times over the years, who had always wanted to kill him, were dead? Just like that? The two of them are dead. I only feel happy. But I'm just worried, how will foster father bear this matter? These two people were his sons. Even if they did not live up to expectations, they were still his flesh and blood. Gu Duxing sat down and held his head with both hands, his face full of pain. Killing the two of them is a gift from me, your brother, to you. Chu Yang said indifferently. A gift? Gu Duxing said in a daze. It's also a gift from me to foster father and the Gu clan. Chu Yang chuckled. Being the clan head is much better than the two of them. At least the future of the Gu clan will be guaranteed. Gu Miaoling will be able to make peace sooner. Gu Duxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. I know all this, but the problem is, what's the problem? Chu Yang spread out his hands. They're already dead. This thing is not grass. If you cut off its head, it will grow back. Chapter 266. There's another piece of good news. Chu Yang calmly said, No one knows that I killed them. Nonsense. Gu Duxing rolled his eyes. So you should prepare to avenge your brother. Chu Yang continued, If I'm not wrong, this time, your Gu clan will be up against the Xie clan. Xie clan? Gu Duxing scratched his head. What does this have to do with the Xie clan? Xie Dan Qiong killed one of your king-level masters. So, I attacked right after he attacked. The two of us closely cooperated. Our cooperation was flawless. And we killed 3 of the 4 people from your Gu clan in one fell swoop. Chu Yang mischievously laughed. Gu Duxing finally understood. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So this basin of dirty water was carried by young Master Xie Dan Qiong. You're absolutely right. Chu Yang snapped his fingers and sighed. Xie Dan Qiong is a good person. He did good deeds but still left his name behind. If you don't keep a low profile, can you? Gu Duxing sighed slightly. He looked at Chu Yang with a helpless expression. Chu Yang said it lightly, but how could Gu Duxing not know how big of a risk Chu Yang took? Chu Yang's cultivation was only that of a martial great master. A martial great master. But under the watchful eyes of 40 to 50 king-level masters, he killed 2 important people. Then, with a golden body, Gu Duxing didn't think about what methods Chu Yang used. But he only needed to think. He would break out in a cold sweat. What was Chu Yang's status now? To put it bluntly, Chu Yang's safety was directly related to the outcome of the war between the two countries. But he couldn't afford to make any mistakes, not even the slightest mishap. To put it more seriously, even if Chu Yang had caught a cold, a sneeze could affect his train of thought for a moment. It could lead to a problem in a certain area, but under such circumstances, Chu Yang dared to take the opportunity to kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. But for his brother, for Gu Duxing, because Chu Yang knew that his childhood misfortune was largely due to Gu Yenyang and his brother. Because Chu Yang knew that these 2 people hadn't given up on killing him until now. Because Chu Yang knew that with these 2 people around, he would never be able to stand out in the Gu clan. Because they were the direct descendants of the Gu family. If the 2 of them were capable, Gu Duxing wouldn't have said anything. But Ran Ti found that the two of them were worthless. Moreover, they were jealous of others' ability. They played with power and were vicious and merciless, treacherous and cunning. Therefore, the reason why Chu Yang struck this time was all because of Gu Duxing. Gu Duxing never said any words of thanks. There was no need to say it, much less say it out loud. However, he would remember this favor. Although this matter wasn't done openly, it was done once and for all. Gu Duxing's future troubles would be removed from the root forever. If it were up to Gu Duxing himself, he would probably not lay a hand on these two people in this lifetime out of consideration for his foster father's kindness. The night passed in silence. Until tomorrow morning, the battle in the imperial city finally came to an end. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing's white robes fluttered in the wind as they stood in front of the imperial palace. They really didn't know how intense the battle was last night. The entire imperial palace was still covered in thick smoke, but it was basically a pile of ruins. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there wasn't even a complete palace left. The imperial palace was completely destroyed. The one who reaped the most benefits was probably Chu Yang, because after entering the imperial palace last night, he helped GMO a few times. After seeing that there weren't any problems, he turned around and went to the treasury. How could Minister Chu let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity to fish in troubled waters? The guards of the treasury were already scared out of their wits. Chu Yang had the calamity sword in his hand, so how sharp was it? He directly cut open a big hole and went in. This time was of the essence and there was no time to absorb it. But Chu Yang had the calamity space now. He waved his hand, "Collect for me! Collect for me!" After shouting like this a few dozen times, the treasury was empty, then he went out. Otherwise, how could he have rushed out through the thick smoke and fire to kill Gu Yenyang and his brother? What the kings and dukes of the 10 great clans didn't know was, the place where the fire burned the brightest was where the imperial palace's treasury was located. It was close to noon. 3 figures walked out of the imperial palace dejectedly. It was the young master of the Luo clan, Luo Kuwu. He was cursing and swearing all the way. His eyes were purple like a panda's. From afar, he could be heard shouting, "Motherfucker, too despicable. Too despicable. This bastard Xie Danqiong, he actually dared to trick me. If it wasn't for..." Behind him, another male came out. His hair was disheveled, and he gritted his teeth. "Motherfucker, why am I so unlucky? The moment I went on stage, I met this little poisonous thing. Motherfucker, how am I supposed to play?" Then Tu Qianhao came out with a sour face. Without a sound, he walked away. "Arrogant my ass. Didn't you also not get it?" Luo Kuwu spat behind him, provoking him with a threatening gesture. His stomach was full of anger, and he was ready to vent it all on his opponent. Tu Qianhao fiercely turned around and glared at Luo Kuwu as if he wanted to eat him. Luo Kuwu didn't show any weakness. He stuck out his chest and shouted, "Tu Qianhao, you don't agree?" Tu Qianhao angrily spat and said, "If it wasn't for your elder sister's sake, I would have been an old man." He then turned around and walked away. Luo Kuwu became furious. He chased after him and shouted, "You and my elder sister haven't become intimate yet. You really think of yourself as my brother-in-law. You're calling me an old man?" Luo Kuwu spoke till here, and suddenly jumped up like an explosive. "Stop. Today, I'm going to ask you, are you going to marry my sister or my aunt?" Fuck. Tu Qianhao ignored him and walked away. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched as he saw this. This brother-in-law and this little uncle are really I finally understand why Luo Kudi is so unruly. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and said with a profound look in his eyes, "I also understand." Gu Duxing looked at Luo Kuwu and nodded cautiously. Then he heavily sighed and said, "If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Perhaps his foundation isn't here." Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be contemplating something. He seemed to be racking his brains. This statement is very reasonable. Gu Duxing frowned. But he nodded honestly, "Perhaps it's his father." Then Odushao came out. This future poison spirit was in a tragic state. His left eye was black and blue, and his right eye was red. His clothes were torn, and half of his snow-white thighs were exposed. Half of his buttocks were faintly discernible as they twisted. They were full of vague beauty. He limped as he walked and muttered, "I'm so unlucky. I ran into Ao Xie Yun, this abnormal person who isn't afraid of poison." Li Xiong too fell down with a bang sound. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. 2 king-level experts of the Li clan followed him and caught him. "Young master, are you all right? How many times have I told you to call me Hero Li?" Li Xiong too opened his eyes wide like a bandit. Then he turned his head and shouted, "Emotion Yun, I won't let you off. Let's wait and see." A few more people came out one after another. Then, Xie Dan Qiong, one of the 12 peerless, also came out with a gloomy face. His handsome face was still white and clean, but his clothes were worse than a beggar's. He didn't say a word and sped away. These people who came out had one thing in common. They obviously saw Chu Yang and Gu Duxing in snow-white clothes, but none of them came forward to greet them. These guys were all proud and arrogant. They all thought, "You are from the upper 3 heavens and we are from the lower 3 heavens. We belong to 2 different worlds. Our paths are different." Moreover, they were embarrassed to come forward and greet them in such a sorry state. It was already bad enough to lose face in the lower 3 heavens. If they lost face in the upper 3 heavens, they waited for a long time, but no one came out. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were getting impatient. Then they saw 3 more people come out. Mo Tianyun and his 2 king-level masters of the Mo clan came out with dejected faces. Their faces were gloomy. It seemed that they didn't get anything. "Let's go." Mo Tianyun coldly snorted. Just as they were about to leave, they saw Chu Yang. Mo Tianyun rolled his eyes and came forward to greet them. His face was full of enthusiasm. "The 2 Chu masters are nothing. We just want to see if that saber is real." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Master Mo, what are you doing?" He looked at the eye-catching 5 finger marks on Mo Tianyun's face. Cough cough. "My skills are not as good as others." Mo Tianyun sighed. It was as if he couldn't bear to look back on the past. Then he blinked and said, "That saber is in Ao Xie Yun's hands." Mo Tianyun naturally knew the purpose of these 2 Chu masters of the upper 3 heavens. When he saw them come, he immediately said something about Ao Xie Yun. "If I can't get it, you, Ao Xie Yun, won't have it easy either." Chu Yang understood and nodded. He comforted him meaningfully, "Brother Mo, don't be discouraged. Even if you can't get this saber, isn't there still a sword?" How could Chu Yang not understand Mo Tianyun's sinister intentions? On the side, Gu Duxing had some disdain in his heart. So many people passed by and no one said anything. "You, Mo Tianyun, just came out and you're already snitching." When Mo Tianyun heard Chu Yang's words, his eyes brightened. He laughed and said, "Master Chu, I'll take my leave first." "Brother Mo, please." Chu Yang smiled warmly and cupped his hands. Finally, in the thick smoke and fire, Ao Xie Yun and the 3 king-level masters of the Ao clan walked out laughing. On his shoulder, there was a long and narrow leather bag. It was the sunlight saber that had caused such a fierce fight. It seemed that it had fallen into the hands of the Ao clan. When he saw Chu Yang, Ao Xie Yun's face was slightly unnatural. He immediately went forward and said warmly, "Brother Chu?" Chu Yang smiled and said gracefully, "Brother Ao, can I take a look at this saber?" When these words came out, the 3 king-level masters of the Ao clan all showed a cautious expression. They looked at Chu Yang with vigilant eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. "What's wrong with that?" Ao Xiun casually took the saber off his shoulder and generously handed it over. Since the other party had made such an open and above-board request, he definitely wouldn't snatch it. If he said he wanted to take a look, then he would take a look. Ao Xiun was well aware of this point. Chapter 267. On the blade, there was a symbol of the sun. Naturally, Chu Yang was very clear about this. because he had carved it with his own hands. But at this moment, Chu Yang seemed to have discovered a new continent. He looked at the symbol with deep eyes and pondered for a long time. After a long time, he returned the blade and said, "Thank you for your trust, Brother Ao." Ao Xieyun said, "Brother Chu, you don't need to be so polite. This blade was snatched from someone else. The Brother Chu likes it, you can take it and study it for a few days." Chu Yang laughed and repeatedly declined. He thought, "If I really take it and run away, I can guarantee that you will immediately fight me." Ao Xieyun took back the blade and said with a smile, "Regarding the secret of this blade, I have already studied it for a while, but I still couldn't find anything. Does Brother Chu have any advice?" "I really don't have any," Chu Yang said sincerely. "However, I seem to have heard that this sunlight saber needs to be used together with the moonlight sword to display its full power. But the rumor has been around for so many years, whether it is true or not, I am not sure." Ao Xieyun's eyes flashed with a strange light and said meaningfully, "Brother Chu is right." So the three of them returned side by side. On the way back, they saw a banner fluttering in the wind. It was Di Wuqingrou's arrival. Since this matter had come to an end, Di Wuqingrou naturally wanted to take a look. With a shout, the oncoming troops stopped and the cavalry immediately separated to two sides, revealing a carriage. The curtain of the carriage was lifted and Di Wuqingrou was seen sitting peacefully in the carriage. Seeing Ao Xieyun and Chu Yang standing together, each of them tall and straight with an unfathomable expression, Di Wuqingrou frowned deeply. "So it is Elder Ao and the two elders Chu." Di Wuqingrou sat in the carriage motionlessly and said in an indifferent voice. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Di Wuqingrou's words were in the wrong order. If he really recognized his identity, he should have said, "So it is Elder Chu and Elder Ao." But now, he put Ao Xieyun in front of him. What did this mean? Chu Yang's face did not change, but he immediately made a decision in his heart. There was no need to wait for the moonlight sword. As long as he left Di Wuqingrou's sight today, the two elders Chu must disappear immediately. Otherwise, it would be too late. Prime Minister Diwu. The three of them smiled and led the way. It seems that Sunlight Saber was obtained by the Ao clan. Di Wuqingrou smiled. "Congratulations, Duke Ao." "I was just lucky." Ao Xieyun said modestly, "We still have to see if we can decipher its secret. Prime Minister, you also know that this is not an easy task." "I believe that Ao Gong has the strength." Di Wuqingrou chuckled, but his eyes were fixed on the saber in Ao Xieyun's hand. Di Wuqingrou hated Sunlight Saber, but he was also curious about it. "Please take a look, Prime Minister." Ao Xieyun smiled and generously handed the saber over. Yin Wu Tian stepped forward, took the saber, and handed it over to Di Wuqingrou. Di Wuqingrou casually waved his hand. The saber of a knight beside the carriage broke into two pieces with a shwa sound. "It is indeed a good saber," Di Wuqingrou exclaimed in admiration. Then, he looked at the sun pattern on the saber and pondered with rapt attention. After a while, Yin Wufu returned the saber. "Three dukes, please take your time. I originally wanted to go to the royal palace to clean up the mess. Then I will have to pay a visit to Duke Ao." Di Wuqingrou smiled gently. "Dukes Chu, may I ask when you will return?" "When it is time to return, we will return." Chu Yang smiled reservedly. "For now, I will have to trouble Prime Minister for a while." "Duke Chu is too polite." Di Wuqingrou smiled. "Whenever Duke Chu is free, I will be waiting for you. At that time, let's drink and chat. How about it?" "That is my wish. I dare not ask." Chu Yang smiled gracefully. "Then I will take my leave first." Then Ao Xieyun and Chu Yang made way for Di Wuqingrou's carriage to pass. Chu Yang acted as if nothing had happened as he walked forward with Ao Xieyun and Gu Duxing. However, he could faintly feel a meaningful gaze lingering on his back for a long time. This feeling made King of Hell Chu's hair stand on end. Chu Yang had no intention of lingering. Ao Xieyun was also afraid of long delays. The five of them walked quickly and arrived at Heaven-Reaching Tower. After reluctantly saying goodbye, Chu Yang and Gu Duxing returned to their own rooms. We must disappear immediately. Once the door was closed, Chu Yang said with a serious expression. He found us? Gu Duxing asked. Not necessarily. If he was sure, he would have taken him down on the spot. Chu Yang said, however, in these few days, Diwu Ro should be using his own channels to investigate our identities. Then, the surroundings of Heaven-Reaching Tower are probably filled with Diwu Ro's scouts. Gu Duxing said, how do we get out? We will leave the same way we came in. Chu Yang came to the window and looked outside through the curtains. He could see far and near, high and low. There were already many people watching this place. These people looked very normal, but there was a special kind of hostility and vigilance that was very strong. If I were Diwu Ro, Chu Yang frowned and said softly, I have not confirmed their identities yet. I can only monitor them for now and wait for news. Plus, these two must think that they have fooled me. So, we need to wait for the news to be confirmed. If these two leave, it will be at night. Gu Duxing whispered, so we don't need to wait until night? Yes, we will leave now. Chu Yang said casually. Do you want to write a letter to Diwu Ro? Gu Duxing pondered for a moment and said, since Grand Duke Chu is going to disappear, writing a letter to attack him is not a bad idea. It's better not to write. Chu Yang paced 2 steps and said, if we continue to act innocent, it will be easy to anger him. This will not be good for our next plan. Plus, even if Diwu Ro is sure that we are fakes, he cannot be sure that King of Hell Chu is here personally. Chu Yang said this and his eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly stopped and clapped his hands. That's right. We should write a letter to Diwu Ro. Gu Duxing fainted. Just now you said not to write a letter to Diwu Ro, but now you agree? Diwu Ro knows that people like me and him will not do such a thing. Because that will make us look like villains who are intoxicated with success and immature. So, he will also think that if I am really King of Hell Chu, I will not leave such a letter. Provided. What do you think he will think? Gu Duxing smiled and said, of course he will be more suspicious. What I want is for him to be more suspicious. Chu Yang laughed. While Gu Duxing was tidying up, Chu Yang had already written a letter to his heart's content and put it into an empty paper bag. On the outside of the paper bag he wrote, to Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang bowed. Then he threw the pen and laughed. He pulled Gu Duxing to the front of the mirror and carefully modified it. After a short while, Chu Yang rolled up a quilt in front of the curtains and placed it on the chair. He folded the quilt so that people who looked through the curtains could vaguely see a figure sitting on the chair, deep in thought. Then, the two of them swaggered out of the door. Diwu Ro arrived at the royal palace and saw the miserable scene. His face was gloomy and he did not speak for a long time. Are His Majesty and the others okay? Diwu Ro asked softly. His Majesty's injuries are fine, but after this incident, I am afraid His Majesty's feelings towards Prime Minister. This? Han Bu-chu said worriedly, I am afraid he will be even more dissatisfied. This is not a problem. Diwu Ro said indifferently, let's go see the palace's facilities and see if they can still be used. At this moment, a group of people came rolling in from another road. A fat eunuch rode on a horse and came forward arrogantly. His voice sounded like a mating duck that had been poked in the butt with a stick. By the Emperor's order, we are here to inspect the palace's goods. Diwu Ro looked at the fat eunuch with a calm expression and said, since His Majesty has sent people, let's guard the guards. In that case, we'll leave some soldiers to guard the place and leave the inspection to them. Yin Wu Tian looked coldly at the fat eunuch. He could not help but spit and said, eunuchs are good. Sitting on a horse with such a big leg, you don't have to worry about wearing anything. Pitif. Han Bu-chu was flabbergasted and laughed out loud. This eunuch was called Lu Rinjia, and he was the head of the palace's internal affairs. He was sarcastic and unkind. Although he looked a bit fat, he liked to dance. Usually, he enjoyed watching the palace maids dance. Moreover, he thought he was extraordinary. He gave himself a name that was full of dancing flavor, Fantasy Night Phoenix. Han Bu-chu had once commented on this name, worthy of a eunuch's name. It is very realistic. Phoenixes are a pair of male and female. This Lu Renjia took it all on himself. He really thought about everything from the front to the back. Han Bu-chu's words were once regarded by the people in Diwu Qingrou's group as Great Zhao's #1 joke of the year. But because of this fantasy knight phoenix hated Han Bu-chu to the bone. He had once said behind his back, "This bastard Han Bu-chu thinks his name is very clever. Just look at those 3 words and you will know. Can't say it? He can't even say it when he is a ***. Although this guy was a eunuch, he did not get along with Diwu Qingrou. Therefore, Diwu Qingrou's people did not have a good impression of this guy. With this order, Diwu Qingrou did not even have the mood to talk to him. He just turned around and left. Lu Renjia snorted and looked at Diwu Qingrou's carriage in the distance. He said, "What's there to be proud of?" This was very coquettish and gentle. It made the surrounding people shiver. Immediately, he waved his fat hand and said in a shrill voice, "Go in." After a while, suddenly, an inhuman scream came from the ruins of the palace. "Diwu Qingrou, you bastard! The palace's treasury is empty. The treasury is empty." Chapter 268. The treasury of the royal palace was empty. This was not just a treasury. Inside, there were all the treasures that the great Zhao kingdom had collected for thousands of years. There were large amounts of strange metals, heavenly medicines, divine weapons, and countless gold and silver. There were even some treasures that were the only ones. This included too many secret martial arts manuals. With so many things, it would take half a day to move them all. It was completely empty. Looking at the treasury of the royal palace, Lu Renjia wanted to cry but had no tears. His main mission was to come here. But now, looking at the empty space inside, Lu Renjia broke down. Besides air, there was nothing else. Even the iron frames inside were gone. He had nothing at all. If a mouse went in, it would come out with tears in its eyes. General Manager Lu Renjia flew into a rage. It was true that there was a battle here last night. It was also true that the royal palace was destroyed last night. It was also true that the dukes of the upper 3 heavens fought here last night. But how many people were there? How could those few people empty this place? What a joke! Who could have done all this? Who in the world could it be? Diwu Qingrou. You are digging up the ancestral graves of the royal family. Lu Renjia used a heart-piercing, blood-piercing voice to shout out these words that had already reached a certain level of grief and indignation. Only Diwu Qingrou would be able to take advantage of this chaos and loot a burning house without anyone noticing. And he would be able to accomplish all of this. Looking at the empty space here, when the question, "Who did it?" was asked, millions of people would point their fingers at the same person, Diwu Qingrou. King of Hell Chu was powerful, but this was Great Zhao. Lu Renjia immediately ran back. Regarding this marriage, he naturally had to report it to the emperor as soon as possible. In the afternoon, Lu Renjia rode a tall horse with a group of elite soldiers. He carried the emperor's imperial edict and set off for the prime minister's manor. There must be an explanation for this matter. Right now, Diwu Qingrou was in his study with an ugly expression. It has been confirmed that the Chu clan of Upper 3 Heavens does not have Chu Fei and Chu Nan. This small piece of paper was in Diwu Qingrou's hand. Diwu Qingrou immediately sent out an investigation request after receiving news that the Chu clan had arrived at Heaven Reaching Tower. This was the news he had been waiting for these past few days. It had finally come. Diwu Qingrou's hand clenched tighter and tighter. The next moment, Diwu Qingrou shouted, "Jing Meng Hun! In Wu Tian! Gather the troops and mobilize all the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department who are revered martial artists and above. Capture the Chu clan of Upper 3 Heavens. Remember, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. Capture them? Yes." There was a rumbling noise outside the door, followed by the sound of rustling. Then, it disappeared and returned to silence. And now, GMO, Grand Duke Ji, and Miao Butong had already arrived at heaven-reaching tower. Inside Grand Duke Jiju's room, GMO was ready to return to the three heavens with his eldest brother at any time. His mission here had been completed. He only needed to go back to upper three heavens to train. GMO had even planned to go to Zhonglan battlefront to train as soon as he returned to upper three heavens. Using the method that Big Brother Qi taught him, he wanted to increase his strength as fast as he could in the shortest time possible. Wasn't it just breaking through the limit again and again? GMO thought about the wonderful training method Big Brother Chu taught him and his brothers. His heart was filled with confidence. Big Brother said that we must kill our way to upper three heavens. Second Master Ji, you're back? In Jiju's room, when GMO entered, Jiju was reclining on a chair, nodding and dozing off. He had no choice. He woke up too early this morning and disrupted his biological clock. Seeing that his brother had returned, Jiju first waved his hand and chased the few family guards out. Then he instructed Miao Buguan, who was standing by the door, to close the door. Then he lazily lifted his chin and looked at his own brother. With a half-dead attitude, he said these words in a strange tone. Cough, 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 big brother. GMO coughed dryly. He avoided his brother's gaze and laughed dryly. Big brother, you're becoming more and more brilliant. Really? Jiju pouted and used a very funny mouth shape. He used a very fake and self-satisfied appearance to accept his brother's insincere praise. He calmly asked, Second Master Ji, did you have a good time outside? Good, it was really good. GMO lowered his head and rolled his eyes. When he raised his head again, his face was full of eagerness. Big brother, I didn't know before I came out. When I came out, I was shocked. Oh, what happened? Jiju looked at his brother with interest. Tired? A cup of water blinded you? His tone was close to an opera singer's voice. Big brother, you don't understand how I feel. This time, I have truly experienced the beauty of the earth, the magnificence of the mountains and rivers, the vastness of the sea, and the countless uncanny workmanship. The wind that seizes the fortune of heaven and earth is. I'm really reluctant to go back and forth. GMO used an exaggerated expression and posture. He used a very aria tone and his eyes were full of fascination as he spoke. Is there a howl? Jiju's expression was very strange. GMO nodded like a chicken pecking rice. It's really too howling. Burping, I even wrote a poem about it. You can write poems? Jiju opened his eyes wide. This time he was really surprised. Of course. GMO shook his head and proudly said, Listen carefully. It rained for 3 days yesterday. Today I came to the mountain. The stones on the mountain are really hard. The water on the mountain is really sweet. The flowers on the mountain are really fragrant. The girls on the mountain are like fairies. Yesterday they left the mountain and today they came to the sea. The sea waves are really high. Stop. Jiju painfully twisted his face. Second Master Ji, this poem of yours can be passed down through the ages. You should go back to the lower three heavens and recite it to Father. GMO laughed mischievously and said flatteringly, Big brother, the lower three heavens is so fun. Really? Jiju made a pig face. He suddenly lowered his voice and laughed. Is Sunlight Saber also howling? It was indeed howling. Jianghu? GMO replied happily. Suddenly, he grabbed his thigh and jumped up. The hair on his entire body stood on end. He looked at his elder brother in horror. His eyes froze. Ji Butong, who was at the side, almost cried out in shock. Second Master Ji. Jiju fiercely slammed the table, unable to restrain his anger. He shouted like a thunderclap, How dare you! GMO sat down on the ground, and cold sweat started to pour out. Boss. GMO's lips trembled. You motherfucker! Jiju roared like a thunderbolt. Do you know that this will kill the entire family? Do you know that once your actions are exposed, it will bring disaster to your family? Do you know how stupid you are? Don't you know, your granny? Motherfucker. GMO lowered his head and didn't answer. He didn't move, but his heart was crazily fighting back. My granny is your granny. My granny is your granny. My mom is your mom. Motherfucker. 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 You actually said dog ant? Jiju's real outburst had finally arrived. He raised his leg and kicked GMO, causing him to tumble over. His saliva splattered everywhere. Dog is your aunt. GMO screamed and rolled on the ground. He cursed in his heart, it's your aunt. He screamed, boss, I was wrong. I changed. I won't do it again. I finally understood the doubts in my heart. It turned out that this fellow had also gone to fight for it last night. But when he heard me call out dog aunt, he found out about my identity. Motherfucker, his mouth really needs to be sewn shut. Jiju flew up, grabbed this guy, and beat him up. His hands were like raindrops, punching and kicking. Gmo's body spun back and forth in the air, unable to touch the ground. In the end, he ruthlessly kicked his brother's fleshy buttocks, sending him flying as if he was kicking a carpet. Then, before he could fly as high as he could, he slapped his brother on the ground with a loud bang. Only then did Jiju stop. Tell me, what should we do? Jiju, who had finally finished venting, turned back and sat on the chair. His whole body was in a shape as he said lazily. Oh, you. GMO, who had been screaming miserably all this time, was extremely proud of himself in his heart. My special skills during this period of time aren't just for show. Boss beating me like this is just like scratching an itch. When he heard Jiju's words, he couldn't help but ask, what do you mean? Bi-chang is dead. Don't play dumb with me. Jiju slammed the table. I know I didn't hurt you. You dare to call yourself old in front of me? GMO shrieked. Suddenly, he was filled with righteous indignation and jumped 3 feet high. You motherfucker, Jiju. You call yourself old in front of me? Miao Butong closed his eyes, unable to bear the sight. His face was twisted and convulsed. What kind of brothers are these? In an instant, Jiju's anger, which had just subsided, flared up again. He jumped up. Immediately after, Miao Butong saw the 2 brothers, who shared the same father and mother, cursing each other angrily. Then they wrestled on the ground. Bang bang bang. Puff puff puff. Bang bang bang. Chapter 269. It was finally over. The 2 brothers were lying on the ground, groaning with bruised noses and swollen faces. Damn little brat, you've improved a lot. Young Master Jiju hissed and breathed in cold air. He carefully stroked the bruises on his face and cursed, You dared to hit me? I'm your elder brother. Since ancient times, an elder brother is like a father. You're a bastard who deceives his master. These words made Yin Butong's stomach ache. You have the nerve to say that an elder brother is like a father? I hit you, little brat. Second young Master GMO was lying on the ground with his buttocks sticking out. He tried to stroke his bruised buttocks with one hand, but he kept breathing in cold air and muttering. GMO, wait until we return to the clan. I will report everything you've done to my father, and let him decide on your crime. I'll also report it to the elders to discuss your punishment. Jiju fiercely counted with his fingers. Elder brother. Blood brother. GMO's face suddenly turned gloomy. You and I are brothers from the same mother. Our hearts are connected to each other. Blood is connected to blood. Even broken bones are connected to each other. I'm your blood brother. You can't be so heartless. If you report this to the clan, I'll be done for. I'll be locked up in the dark cave for at least 3 years. Humph. Jiju sneered. That has nothing to do with me. Say it. What are your conditions? Keep it a secret for me. GMO solemnly raised his head, looking like a hero dying for justice. The conditions are very simple. Jiju proudly looked at him. Say it. I can take it. Jiju bravely said. His face was like a dead pig that didn't fear boiling water. When we return to the clan, you'll put all these things on me. Then, you'll tell the clan to remove me from the position of the clan's successor. I'll take the punishment for you. That's enough. Jianghu blinked his eyes and bravely said, Who told me to be your elder brother? If I don't take the blame for my brother, can I still be considered a brother? Yin Butong, who had been restless on the side, heard this and became completely confused. What kind of explanation was this? GMO said emotionally, a man should take responsibility for his own actions. How could I let my dear brother bear such a crime for me? I've decided. Even if I have to go to the dark cave, I will accept it. No. Second brother, you're still young. I should go to the dark cave. Jianghu said kindly, I'll leave the family to you. No. Big brother, you are the pillar of the clan. GMO was very determined. Do you want to be the successor of this family? Jianghu shouted in exasperation. His eyebrows were tightly knitted, and his eyes were full of sullen anger. He seemed to be about to go crazy. No way. I won't do it even if you kill me. I won't do it even if you chop my head off. GMO was impassioned. I can kneel and kowtow, but I can't lose my position as the second duke. My head can be severed and my blood can flow, but my body must be free. Wow! Jianghu madly rushed forward and grabbed GMO's neck with both hands. He shook him hard and gnashed his teeth. Will you do it or not? GMO was choked so hard that his tongue was stuck out, but he still said with great difficulty, Yes. I won't do it. Rui Butong was dumbfounded. He was used to seeing and hearing that brothers in other families would fight to the death for the position of the head of the family. He never thought that these two brothers would be pushing each other. It was just the head of the family. Did they have to be like this? But after thinking about it, he felt relieved. These two in front of him would never sit if they could lie down, and would never stand if they could sit. It would be difficult for them to be the head of the family. This situation made Rui Butong click his tongue and sigh. This is really a man of the world. There are all kinds of strange things. Second brother, take pity on me. Jianghu suddenly let go of his hand and cried bitterly, Take pity on me. Look at my lazy and sloppy appearance. Do I look like the right person to be the head of the family? I have been driven crazy by father and the elders. Every day, I have to learn those dogs hit rituals. GMO burst into tears. Big brother, please spare me for the sake of your younger brother's young age. My young heart can't withstand that kind of devastation. Wu, the two brothers hugged each other and cried bitterly. Su Butong felt dizzy and fell to the ground with a thud. Finally, he couldn't help but hit the ground with his head. He pounded the ground with his hands and cried loudly, You two brothers, please spare me. I'm so pitiful that I've already broken down. It was a farce. Diwu Qingrou's Golden Horse Riders department had gathered and surrounded Heaven-Reaching Tower. Bao Menghun personally led the team. He was fully armed and on guard. This was a long-range operation to capture King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun was completely convinced that this would be the biggest feat in recent years. This operation would definitely go down in history. Is the target still there? Jing Menghun asked in a low voice. The target has always been there. The person in charge of monitoring was a revered martial artist. His eyes revealed a happy expression. He suppressed his excitement and said, I have been watching closely. Through the curtains, that person has been crouching in front of the desk. It seems like he is looking at something or studying something. He has not moved. Are you sure? I am sure. Jing Menghun was relieved. He straightened up and smiled with satisfaction. If this operation is successful, you will have made a great contribution. It is all thanks to the king-level leader's promotion. The revered martial artist smiled and saluted. He felt as if his whole body was as light as a feather. It was as if he was riding the clouds. All teams, pay attention. Jing Menghun's eyes flashed with lightning. His extremely sharp gaze flashed across the faces of his subordinates. He said coldly, This operation is of great importance. There must be no mistakes. This could affect Great Zhao's hegemony. Prime Minister Diwu's grand blueprint to unify the world. Do you understand? Is it really that serious? A revered martial artist asked suspiciously. I am not afraid to tell you that the person in this room. Jing Menghun was full of apprehension as he pointed at the window. He lowered his voice, but it made people feel even more awe-inspiring. It is King of Hell Chu. King of Hell Chu. Everyone turned pale with fright. Some people couldn't help but shout out loud. Too shocking. Too unexpected. Too. It turned out to be King of Hell Chu. Ah! Jing Menghun quickly covered the mouth of the martial great master who was about to shout. Then he slapped him repeatedly. He cursed in a very low voice, Motherfucker! What are you shouting for? What if we alert the enemy? That martial great master's mouth was covered. His head was swaying left and right due to the impact. His hair was scattered all over the place. It looked like an underwater algae that had encountered a tsunami. Jing Menghun loosened his grip. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and 3 teeth. He excitedly asked, Is it really King of Hell Chu? Jing Menghun looked at him with contempt. He then looked at the others and scolded, Look at your useless faces. We have only caught one person. Is it worth being so excited? Haven't we caught a lot of people? Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. However, they couldn't hide the excitement in their eyes. King of Hell Chu must be. King of Hell Chu, Jing Menghun was scolding them. However, he had always been as calm as ice and snow. He was a veteran of Jianghu. But he couldn't help but be so excited that his face turned red. This is really King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, Pay attention. Listen to my orders. Team 1 to 3. Jing Menghun's voice was low and urgent. It was full of oppressive feeling as if a storm was about to come. Everyone was in high spirits. Strictly seal every intersection. Once the operation begins, even if it's a rat, we can't let it get out. Understood? Team 4, 5, 6. Yes. Strictly seal the sky. Even if it's a fly. Don't let it fly out. Understood? Team 7, 8, 6. Yes. Unified support. Understood? Yes. Yin Wu Tian took a step forward. His eyes were full of the pleasure of revenge. King of Hell Chu had crippled his elder brother Yin Wufei. This was an irreconcilable blood feud. Now, the time for revenge had finally come. You will personally lead your troops to attack from the windows. Understood. The rest of the troops will follow me through the main entrance. Yes. Jing Menghun's commanding ability was undeniable. His leadership ability was also remarkable. Everything was arranged properly. Everyone was in place. Everything was ready. Jing Menghun felt his heartbeat accelerate. Everyone could feel their heartbeats quickening. Their hearts were beating so fiercely that it seemed as if they would jump out of their chests. Their breathing was rapid. It was as if they were old virgins who had just entered the bridal chamber. They had discovered the incomparably beautiful body of the bride. Some people couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Everyone was waiting for the opportunity to attack. They were anxiously looking at Jing Menghun. They were waiting for him to wave his hand. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. It was motionless. It was so. Finally, all the troops arrived at their designated positions. Jing Menghun's eyes suddenly lit up. Everyone held their breaths. Jing Menghun slowly raised his right hand. Everyone's hearts suddenly jumped to their throats. The next moment, Jing Menghun fiercely waved his hand. His voice was low, but it seemed to affect everyone's soul. Everyone felt dizzy at the same time. Yes, move. Jing Menghun's head shook as he said these 2 words. However, no one noticed King-level leader Jing's excitement. The moment King-level leader Jing uttered these words, a shadow shot out like a sharp arrow. His agility and speed had definitely exceeded their highest level. At this moment, almost everyone had a breakthrough at the same time. That kind of excitement. This operation would be the most perfect operation since the establishment of Golden Horse Riders Department. Arrest King of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun's body swept out like lightning. He took the lead in front. A wisp of green smoke swept across a distance of several hundred feet. He then turned into a formless ghost and entered heaven-reaching tower. In the next moment, like a wisp of moving smoke, he had already silently leaped up the stairs. Shwa shwa shwa, finally. They arrived. Chapter 270. No less than 10 top-grade revered martial artists had been killed. Dozens of their core forces had also lost their lives. Just a few days ago, he had spoken a few words in this very room. But he had been reprimanded on the spot and had been called a slave. Every single one of these things was the work of this person. Today, your retribution has arrived. King-level expert Jing's eyes emitted hatred and delight. He held his breath and suddenly quietly raised his right hand. It was silent, but majestic. The leaders behind him prostrated themselves in unison. Finally, a sound was heard from the direction of the window. It was the sound of Yin Wu Tian breaking the window stem. Yin Wu Tian had already made his move. Jing Meng Hun didn't hesitate any longer. He raised his leg and kicked the door with the force of a thunderbolt. The door was smashed into pieces with a loud bang. The door was smashed into pieces. Jing Meng Hun immediately strode into the room. He then shouted in an awe-inspiring manner, "King of Hell Chu! Surrender without a fight!" Ha! The fragments of the wooden door scattered everywhere. Time and space seemed to have become mottled at this moment. They couldn't see anything clearly. They could only see a tall and straight figure on the opposite side. He had also adopted a fighting posture. The two palms collided with a loud bang. The person on the opposite side suddenly exclaimed, "Big brother! It's me! Yin Wu Tian!" Jing Meng Hun shouted angrily. He rolled up his sleeves, and the fragments scattered in the air flew away like a whirlwind. The view of the room suddenly became clear. The experts of the Golden Horse Riders department came out of the window behind Jing Meng Hun and in front of him. They were emitting murderous auras as they entered the room. Jing Meng Hun opened his eyes wide. He was dumbstruck as he looked in front of him. Everyone who had entered the room maintained the same posture. They were dumbstruck as they looked in one direction. Over there was a desk and a chair. On the chair, there was a quilt rolled up and placed on top of it. The top of the quilt was tied tightly with a piece of rope, creating a position similar to the neck. She was sitting on the chair in a contemplative posture. Apart from this, there was no one else. Jing Meng Hun turned his neck in a daze. Then he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed a guy near the door. He fiercely asked, "Where is he?" This pitiful revered martial artist who was rolling his eyes was the one in charge of monitoring. "This is clearly. The pitiful Wu Zun's eyes were filled with fear. He was on the verge of breaking down. With a long face, he asked blankly, "Where is he?" "I'm always asking you." Jing Meng Hun swung his hand and slapped the revered martial artist's head with a loud bang sound. The revered martial artist's head was violently thrown backwards. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and several of his teeth fell to the ground with a ding-ding sound. Then he passed out. He fainted at the right time. He avoided answering the question, although he couldn't answer it anyway. Trash. Jing Meng Hun threw him to the ground and cursed angrily. "There is a letter here." Yin Wu Tian stood on one side with a gloomy and cold complexion. This was an ordinary letter. On the cover, it was written, "To Diwu Qing Ro. Chu Yang pays his respects." Chu Yang. Chu Yang. Jing Meng Hun's blood rushed to his head. He stared fixedly at the letter. "It's really King of Hell Chu." At this moment, a cold voice said, "King-level leader Jing, could it be that my heaven-reaching tower offended you? You actually smashed this place to pieces. Is your hatred very strong?" Jing Meng Hun suddenly turned his head and saw a fat man standing in the direction of the doorway. He was coldly looking at him. His usual amiable attitude was gone, replaced by a rage that was brewing in his heart. "Heaven-reaching tower shopkeeper, Du Fa Kai. Cabinet Du, your door did not offend me. But your heaven-reaching tower is hiding a spy from Iron Cloud. Moreover, it is our life and death feud." Jing Meng Hun said gloomily, Shopkeeper Du, you need to give me an explanation for this matter. Explanation? Pa. Du Fa Kai sneered. Jing Menghun, you need to understand. My heaven-reaching tower does not belong to Great Xiao. Let's not talk about a spy from Iron Cloud. Even if Jing Menghun killed your father and stole your wife, he would be our honored guest as long as he could afford to pay the price. Even if the real king of Hell Chu came here with his identity, he would still be our honored guest. I don't need to explain anything to you. On the contrary, my heaven-reaching tower needs an explanation from you, king-level leader Jing. Even Golden Horse Rider's department cannot cause trouble at my heaven-reaching tower. Du Fa Kai said gloomily, even your lord, Diwu Qingro, cannot. Du Fa Kai's eyes emitted a cold light, but he calmly looked at Jing Menghun. Jing Menghun's face instantly turned ugly. He suddenly realized that the person in front of him was not someone to be trifled with. This person was not someone who could be easily bullied. This was a person from Dark Bamboo, the biggest dark power in the lower heavens. If they really had a falling out and angered Jun Shizhu, that crazy woman would not mind bringing the underworld of the lower three heavens to the lower three heavens to gain experience. As the master of the dark side, Dark Bamboo only retained some respect for the rules, but in other aspects, he completely ignored the restrictions of the rules. Therefore, only Dark Bamboo's forces could come to the lower three heavens to make money. The reason was simple: who had ever seen an underworld really abide by the law? Fortunately, they were only making money. If they were to do something else, it would be unbearable. Diwu Qingro was currently waiting at the mansion. Opposite him was Gao Sheng. Since the major clans of the lower three heavens came to the province, Gao Sheng began to live in seclusion. Even if he had to go out, he would wear a veil. Even his subordinates would cover their faces. They did not want anyone to recognize them. Young Master Gao had a misgivings. This misgivings was Gao Sheng's nightmare. Although this nightmare had not appeared yet, Gao Sheng did not dare to be careless. What a sin! Gao Sheng lamented countless times in his heart. Every time he thought of that Miss Huyen, he felt as if he had eaten a fly. That kind of feeling did not need to be mentioned. Prime Minister, in your opinion, what are the chances of capturing that king of Hell Chu? Gao Sheng asked. Right now, I can only say that fake Duke Chu. I cannot say king of Hell Chu. Fifth Prince looked at the book and said in a gentle and warm voice, anything can happen before king-level expert Jing returns. With such a meticulous plan and a thunderous operation, does Prime Minister think that there will be an accident? Gao Sheng asked in astonishment. In his heart, this operation was absolutely foolproof. King of Hell Chu would not be able to escape. Before you do anything, do your best and do your best to do it in the best way possible. At the same time, you have to minimize the joy and sorrow of being on the verge of success. Try your best to think about the obstacles you might encounter. Diwu Qingro's gaze was profound. Only then can you reap one surprise after another. Even if it is a predicted success, it can still give you a pleasant sense of accomplishment. Any complacency and self-confidence can lead to a crushing defeat. Moreover, with that kind of mentality, a crushing defeat will have a huge impact on your mind. Diwu Qingro looked at Gao Sheng and said, Gao Sheng, you must remember this. Gao Sheng pondered deeply over these words and nodded. Since ancient times, how many heroes and generals have suffered setbacks when they were about to succeed? In the eyes of the later generations, under that kind of strength, even if they suffered a setback, they would not be destroyed. However, the bizarre affairs of the world are hard to predict. Often, that general would be unable to recover after that setback. His army would be defeated like a mountain nephew, and thus lead to the defeat of the entire war. Do you know why? Too much expectation? Is it because of the heart's devil? Gao Sheng asked in confusion. Yes and no. Diwu Qingro said, it is because they have lost to themselves. He was already preparing to celebrate when he launched the attack that he thought would decide the outcome of the battle. But a failure at this moment was the most fatal. Before this, a person would not be defeated by thousands of failures. But at this time, he would be utterly defeated. Therefore, There have been many war cases since ancient times. Later generations have studied them, but they are still puzzled. Because, no matter how you look at it, they should not have failed. But they failed. Military researchers and strategists call it a mystery. But this matter is only one thing. The general's heart was in chaos. His heart was defeated. So, any decision he made at that time was wrong. Failure was inevitable. I don't want to fail at this time. Diwu Qingro said casually, so, I never think about what happens after the victory. I understand, Gao Sheng said in a heartfelt and sincere manner. When one was about to succeed, it was the time when everyone was the most excited. If they suffer setbacks at that time, what Diwu Qingro said was the most difficult thing, to grasp one's own mentality. You will still be able to move unhindered in the three heavens in the future. This is especially important for your mentality. Diwu Qingro sincerely taught. At this time, a servant came in and reported, Prime Minister, Chief Steward Lu of the palace has come with an imperial edict. Imperial edict? Diwu Qingro frowned slightly. This was a very distant word. Ever since His Majesty had trusted him, he had been suspicious, he had been on guard, and then he hated him. He had never received an imperial edict. Why did the imperial edict come at this time? Let him in, Diwu Qingro said. Not long after, Chief Steward Lu Renjia walked in with a white and fat body. His face was full of dissatisfaction. To receive an imperial edict, one had to burn incense and set up an incense table in the main hall. The whole family, young and old, would welcome the imperial edict. They would kneel 3 times, kowtow, and greet the emperor. Now, Diwu Qingro was actually receiving an imperial edict in the study room? Chief Steward Lu was not happy. Chapter 271. Diwu Qingro sat motionlessly on the chair and looked at him calmly. This kind of serene yet deep gaze made Lu Renjia, who was standing opposite him, suddenly feel a burst of fear for no reason. He came with an imperial edict, but at this moment he had a feeling that Diwu Qingro was standing on top of the clouds, looking down at him with disdain. Although there was no emotion in his eyes, Lu Renjia could clearly feel the disdain. At this moment he, the head chief, was like an ant at the foot of a mountain, being looked down upon by others. This feeling made Lu Renjia very unhappy. He felt that he was being looked down upon. No matter what, he was still a powerful general manager. After losing some of the things that a man should have, Lu Renjia no longer had any requirements for money and beauty. But he cared more and more about power and prestige, especially the feeling of needing to be respected by others. It was getting stronger and stronger. In fact, his self-esteem had reached a perverted level. The imperial edict has arrived. Diwu Qingro received the imperial edict. When he didn't get the kind of response that he expected the most, General Manager Lu looked at Diwu Qingro and shouted again. Diwu Qingro frowned slightly. Then Lu Renjia suddenly felt an inexplicable chill all over his body. Read it. Diwu Qingro's expression was still calm. His eyes were still cold and deep. Just one word was enough to shatter Lu Renjia's perverted self-esteem. At this moment, he clearly felt that if he did not read it, he would never have the chance to do so. The 4 eunuchs behind him, acting as guards of honor, were so scared that their 8 legs started to tremble together. By the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. The duck voice just started to read. Read the contents. Diwu Qingro said calmly. Lu Renjia held his breath and almost suffered internal injuries. Diwu Qingro is ordered to return all the items in the royal treasury. Lu Renjia finally could not resist the pressure and only read out the important parts. The royal treasury was stolen? Diwu Qingro frowned and said to himself, You want me to return it? His voice carried a hint of laughter. Gao Sheng, who was standing at the side, almost laughed out loud. Get out. Diwu Qingro opened his eyes and looked at Lu Renjia. Lu Renjia was furious. He held back his anger and said, Prime Minister Diwu, before I came here, His Majesty had warned me again and again that if Prime Minister Diwu took some things, You must have taken them in a proper way and used them in a proper way. However, those things are the foundation of the royal family. I hope that Prime Minister Diwu can understand His Majesty's difficulties. Well, I will understand, Diwu Qingro said indifferently. This sentence caused Chief Steward Lu to roll his eyes. The Emperor asked you to understand, but it was just a polite sentence. You actually understand, and did it? The Emperor has another verbal order. Lu Renjia gritted his teeth and rolled his eyes. Diwu Qingrou's expression did not change, but General Manager Lu clearly felt a sense of impatience. His Majesty said, he hopes that Diwu Qingrou will know when to advance and when to retreat, and not be a traitor. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to eliminate him at all costs, Lu Renjia said slowly. In fact, this sentence was not the Emperor's verbal order. It was a private conversation between the Emperor and the Empress. At that time, Chief Steward Lu was not far away, waiting to serve him. After hearing these words, he naturally placed Diwu Qingrou in the same category as those out-of-favor ministers who could be exterminated at any time. To be able to make the Emperor say such words, could it be that this official had something good to do with him? Inherited Prime Minister? So what? In the past, there had been many officials whose achievements surpassed the Emperor's. Which one of them had not been killed by the Emperor? Even if you, Diwu Qingrou, had great power, you were still just an official. Therefore, today, Chief Steward Lu coldly said these words to protect his pitiful self-esteem. He looked forward to seeing Diwu Qingrou kneeling on the ground and kowtowing pitifully after hearing his words. If that happened, Chief Steward Lu would proudly say, "Since you know this, why did you do it in the first place? I am also powerless," and then leave in a huff. Leaving behind a soulless Diwu Qingrou, regret it. Sure enough, after hearing these words, Diwu Qingrou's face changed. His eyes slowly turned cold. His face also seemed to be covered with a layer of ice. Are these His Majesty's original words? Diwu Qingrou said heavily. Of course. Chief Steward Lu raised his head. Please report to His Majesty that I, Diwu Qingrou, will remember. I will give His Majesty a satisfactory explanation. Diwu Qingrou said slowly. Before Lu Renjia could speak, Gao Xing waved his hand and said, "Men, throw these eunuchs out." In an instant, a few fierce men came in and picked up Lu Renjia and the others. They mercilessly dragged them out. Prime Minister, don't be angry. These words may not have been said by the Emperor. Gao Xing comforted him. I know, this is definitely not the Emperor's verbal order. Diwu Qingrou smiled gently. Since this is the case, why did Prime Minister? Although this is not the Emperor's verbal order, the Emperor must have said this. Diwu Qingrou said slowly. Gao Xing was speechless. The Emperor had said this before, so it was inevitable. There is no smoke without fire. Lu Renjia was a eunuch. Even if he had the guts, he would not dare to fabricate the Emperor's verbal order. Now, since he was able to say such words, it must have been said by the Emperor. The conflict between the royal family and Diwu Qingrou had been going on for a long time, but the two sides had never completely fallen out with each other. The royal family hated Diwu Qingrou. They could not wait to tear Diwu Qingrou into pieces. But they also knew that Great Zhao could not do without Diwu Qingrou. Everyone was well aware that Great Zhao wanted the country to be stable forever. It wanted glory and wealth to rule the world. But Diwu Qingrou wanted to unify the world and establish an unparalleled hegemony. It seemed like they had the same goal, but it was not the same. People like Diwu Qingrou were fighting for their ideals and ambitions. His lifelong ambition was to unify the world with his own hands and with his own wisdom. Diwu Qingrou did not care about power. Power was only a tool to achieve his goals. Therefore, it could be said that both sides were taking what they needed. Diwu Qingrou was now in power. If he wanted to usurp the throne, he would have succeeded. But he did not. This was an invisible hint. You can be the emperor, and I can be the prime minister. You can enjoy your glory and wealth, and I can fight for my country. As for who this country belongs to, I don't care. I only want the pleasure of conquering the world. This was a silent communication. But this kind of communication, this kind of minister, no matter how powerful, would not be liked by the emperor. But the emperor of Great Zhao could only accept it. Although he was sullen to a certain extent, he could only endure it. Originally, this situation would continue. No matter who won or lost, it would continue until the end of the war. This was the history of Great Zhao. It was destined to be history. But now, because of a eunuch who delivered the decree, because of this eunuch's abnormal self-esteem, this originally smooth development of history took a strange turn. Because once this sentence came out, Wuxia and the royal family had no room to maneuver. Especially, behind this eunuch, there were 4 young eunuchs. Next to Wuxia, there was Gao Sheng. If it was an ordinary person, Wuxia could kill them all to silence them. This situation could still continue. But he could not kill Gao Sheng. Since he could not kill Gao Sheng, killing this Wu Hua eunuch would make him look cowardly. But if he let them go, the conflict would intensify. Whether the national treasury was stolen or not was no longer important. What was important was the power struggle of Great Zhao. Just like this, the curtains were magnificently opened by an insignificant person with a disfigured body. History was full of coincidences, and it was so dramatic. Who said that insignificant people could not change history? Chief Steward Lu did it. With the identity of a eunuch, he could control the world with just one sentence. He could be said to be the most powerful eunuch in history. It could be imagined that no matter how things would develop in the future, no matter if Chief Steward Lu would be able to live past today, no matter if he would be able to see the sun tomorrow, and no matter who the final hero of the continent war would be, the great name of this illusory night phoenix was destined to leave behind a thick and heavy mark in the history of the heavenly layer. The national treasury was stolen. Wuxia's eyes slowly became sharp. In one night, from the beginning of the chaos to the retreat of the big dukes, it was not more than 20 hours. And in these 20 hours, Golden Horse Rider's department was watching the periphery. There was absolutely no one who left the royal palace with any large items. Not even a small package was taken out of the palace. The time was too short. It was absolutely impossible to steal the national treasury in this period of time. But now the national treasury is empty. And I have to return it. Wuxia sneered. Moreover, there was even a sentence about getting rid of this person at all costs. Ha! Wuxia smiled gently. But this smile made Gao Sheng shudder at the side. Wuxia's words revealed a lot of things. But in short, there was only one conclusion. The royal family of Great Zhao could no longer tolerate Wuxia's monopoly and wanted to take action. How could Wuxia be the kind of person who would take a beating without fighting back? Wuxia's habit had always been to strike first to gain the upper hand. But, is the county really stupid to this extent? This was the only thing Gao Sheng could not understand. The stupidity of the royal family is far beyond anyone's imagination. Wuxia's words immediately closed the coffin. From this moment on, there was no turning back. Jing Menghun did not catch King of Helchu, but returned to the Gongxiang Manor with a letter and a large amount of money. Content 1. Today, I owe Heaven-Reaching Tower 100,000 silver taels for the loss of goods. Content 2. Today, I owe Heaven-Reaching Tower 100,000 silver taels for the loss of reputation. Content 3. This is the certificate. Signer, Wuxia. Signer, Jing Menghun. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.